Jarl drove it in deep down into turn number 3, but can't get it to stick and can't get that run. So Jimmy Mullis will get that momentum off of corner number 4 and go back to that position. But we've seen this before out of a couple of drivers, Evan. You really have to commit to it and drive that car in deep and maybe pull a little slide job. Hope you're clear off the corner and try to pick up that spot. And Jarl wasn't able to get that momentum on that inside line to clear the 46 of Mullis. But as you mentioned, the 46 of Mullis, the 53 of Ryan Luza, it's like they've had magnets in between each other. They started at the back of the field, worked their way back up, and as you look back, keeping a couple of eyes on some battles there, there's Casey Kerwin to the inside of Ashton Crowder as they'll battle for a spot and then close in on the 24 of Bias ahead of him. So a couple of quick passes throughout this field as we close in on 40 laps to go in this one.
And Kerwin's one of the slower cars on this long run, so the 77 of Crowder going to go right back to his inside. Two of the sharper-looking throwback cars in this exchange with that 14 machine running the outside. Casey Kerwin, the 1989 Kyle Petty throwback. That's the 77 of Ashton Crowder, throwing it back to the boss man, Parker Kligerman, a 2013 car. Always fun when you can incorporate the team into it, and that's what we're seeing in his battle for position just outside of the top 10. It settles down for now with Kerwin being able to hang on, and we'll see if that lasts and how much longer these leaders are going to go. How do you want to stretch it out? We've seen some cars start to trickle down, but that mass influx hasn't happened yet, and we're inside of 40 laps to go in this race. Could your race leaders be just wanting to go to the distance?
Could very well be thinking of it here. The gap's opened up absolutely enormous for your race leader. 2.5 seconds nearly is what that gap's out to for Keegan Leahy over Nathan Lyon. So if they can think about going the distance, maybe you're going to think so. As this fight between the 14 and the 77 is going to keep up between Kerwin and Crowder. Crowder's going to run the bottom. They have that car right out in front of them, the number 24 of Cody Bias, that Mode Motorsports machine. 3 of them starting to line up, and the 14 starting to open up a little bit of a gap, but still one of the closest fights we have out on track.
Rail Falla drops out of the top 10 to come down to the pit lane. The number 8 car also down to pit road, so handful of drivers are starting to come in, but these battles up front continue on, and the 77 and the 14, they have their exchange. In fact, it looks like Kerwin doesn't want to be the one defending. He wants to go to the inside of the 24. So all of this goes on. Bobby Zelensky down to pit road in the 18. The 46 of Mullis going to follow him in as well. So those two cars down together at lap 146.
We'll see if Keegan Leahy decides to come in this time, and he's down below the hash marks. Looks like the 62 car will come down onto pit road and surrender the lead in behind. Nathan Lyon will take that lead, but he's been chased down these last couple laps. You see that Fastenal number 17 in behind. Michael Guess has made tracks to our second place driver, which is now the lead driver as they go down into corner number 1. So not sure if he'll be able to complete the pass for the lead on the racetrack prior to pit stops, but that 17 car, long run, he's been on the move. He might not be as fast as Keegan Leahy up in front, but he might have something here in this remaining run as they both come down into pit road.
So Lyon going to come in for the race lead. Michael Guest behind him. The 2 of Kane Cook from 3rd, all in line. Will temporarily put things in the hands of the 7 of Ryan Lowe, as your race leaders did indeed want service, but a little bit later into the run than they thought they may have. But they are all coming in to top off on fuel, get tires, and try to run this one to the end from Darlington. This final portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Herculiner Truck Bed Liner. The tough comes easy as you're on board with the 7 car diving to pit road. Blake Reynolds next up, 30, back to the race lead.
So here we go. We're starting to see the drivers that are going to try to stick this thing out here for a long time and hope to catch a yellow. Remember, that's similar to what happened in the opening run of this race that we had. We had a handful of drivers after about 40 laps come down pit road, and in quick order, just due to all the traffic, we got a big pileup that ended up kicking off. So let's see if things can stay green for these guys that are coming down pit road and getting the new tires early, or if we get a caution, the 4 and Nathan Lyon in some drama with the 17 and the 2. Look at that, 3 cars all fighting off of pit road, and here comes the 46 of Mullis, the 18 of Zelensky in there. They're 3 wide into 3, and this is about to heat up.
And that's a bunch of slow cars racing off to the pit lane, but the fast ones 3 wide off of the corner. There's not enough room. Somehow we hang on. It was the 17 who was pinched out of space, but Michael Guest keeps it straight. now 6 cars here under a blanketed 1 and 2. Mullis gets away from this. The 7 Kitigaski to end up second in this exchange. Then Lyon. Zelensky is the one who came flying up on the scene late. Kane Cook there, Ryan Luza also. A lot of these cars going to become race leaders once again. But for now, the battle's tentatively outside of the top 20 as the 83 car is into the wall in front of them. They'll snake to the inside to get around. And it works for the time being. Close calls. Not the first time, Tim. You've seen pit cycles lead to some close moments like that.
Yeah, we saw the cycle earlier have a little bit of a miscue, and that caution flag ended up coming out. Your leaders came down pit road, or at least your top 2 on that last cycle came down. Ashton Crowder scored as your leader that last time by with Chris Overland on his back bumper. While you have all this excitement going on in the middle of the pack, got a battle for the lead on her hands as Keegan Leahy moves to the inside to unlap himself. Chris Overland trying to go to the lead on Ashton Crowder down the back straightaway.
Yeah, that's the battle for the actual race lead between the 77 and the 16. They know that obviously this race could catch a yellow and has an opportunity to mix up like we saw earlier. The 75 of Phil Diaz had a scare that last time at a turn 2. It sent cars scattering. So everybody 10th on back is trying to find a spot in line, but this is the exchange for the race lead. Overland on the back of the 77, Randy. They're going to try to go as long as they can. Trying to be the second dose of that caution luck, and you might think, well, Keegan Leahy survived it the first time. He pitted on cycle. It didn't hurt him, but it hurt everybody else. Well, he's on the lead lap, so he's safe, and a caution flag now at 153.
And there it is. That's exactly what we were talking about. What caused this one of the 42 at Dylan Duvall. Actually, one of the cars that was risking this is going to have himself get caught up in an incident. And did this come with quicker lap traffic? Yes, it did. The 7 car of Ryan Lowe makes contact with the 42 at Dylan Duvall. I think Dylan trying to pinch a little bit too much there, knowing he's out there on the old tires. A little bit of contact puts him in the wall. And now all these drivers that risked it and stayed out, they're going to end up in a great position here. And now a lot of these guys that have been out there for 5, 6, 7 laps here, Evan, what are they going to do on tires? If they've been out there for 10, 12, 13 laps, do you unlap yourself now, or do you come down in pit road and take tires now? Think you have to get back on the lead lap, but it's going to be difficult for those guys with 10, 15 laps under them.
It looks like Keegan Leahy in the 62 machine. That's going to be the question mark if he pits. Obviously, everybody else who hadn't pit is. So big gains for the second time tonight with a caution flag in the middle of the green flag pit stops. So Crowder, Overland, Nichols, Nelson, Busa, they're your top 5. They're going to come down to get their 4 tires and then try to race this one out. But a lot of drivers will negate coming down pit road to stay out to get away by. Keegan Leahy is going to pit Sim. So the best car all night, Leahy's going to be at best maybe P10 because he does want the tires so he doesn't cycle back by anybody, and he's going to be behind all these cars who stayed out. 2 for 2 tonight. That long run was the right call. Crowder gets his 4. Let's see if the 77 wins the race off of the pit lane. He does, just barely. Going to squeak this one out atop the 16 of Overland, who will be right there with him to fight for the race win.
And now you have some newer faces up here within the top 5. Guys like Jake Nichols. You saw him racing off of pit road in the 20 car. He's going to be up there battling for a win. There's Chris Overland once again. Right place, right time, and the 16 car is going to have an opportunity to race for a Peak Antifreeze Series win here. We're also underneath 30 laps to go, and we've seen some of these restarts get kind of crazy. This race has taken another turn here. Keegan Leahy's going to have to dig deep. I like the strategy here, or the way it's played out, and we still have a lot of racing left to go, but that steady MD number 77 of Ashton Crowder in a good position right now. He's going to be the control car when we come back to green by the looks of it.
And you could pretty much toss out the 156 laps that we have completed prior to this, because again, it's a whole new race, and kind of funny that this exchange of service and the caution flag falling actually is reverse of what happened, to the likes of Crowder and Overland and some of these cars. They were the top 10 cars earlier, Randy, that had pitted on cycle, and the yellow flag caught them out. So now they think, all right, well, I don't want that to bite me twice. I'm going to stay out this time. It's not a move that really works if we stay green, because again, by staying out on old tires, you're losing 1.5 to 2 seconds every single time around to the cars who are pitting. But in a strategy gamble for the race win, it works out great now because they all got fresh tires and they're now back into positions that were running in earlier. Of course, Crowder started at 15th, first time he's been up front, and first time for Overland this close to the front of the field, but just just shows you how the tides and the winds blow and change here at Darlington as we are going to have a completely different look inside of the final 30. And Keegan Leahy is on even tires as everybody else in front. I believe he will restart in 7th position. He has been the best car all night. Can he get that win to lock himself into the championship for finale? Or will we see one of these drivers play spoiler, maybe even a 3rd straight week of a new race winner in the series?
Could be really exciting. And I mean, like you said, the fact that this racetrack, these guys really risking it going the long run. I think this is one of the racetracks that's really inducive and really great opportunity to run the long run strategy because it's so difficult. Guys get out there on old tires and they're so much, on new tires, and they're so much quicker than those on old tires that they're going to just make up hand over fist in lap time. It's really back-to-back weeks, back-to-back races. We've had that happen. I think Bristol really worked for the long run because it was so likely to get that a caution might come out. And here at Darlington, we've seen the same thing. Compare that to some of the big mile-and-a-half racetracks we typically go to. The cars don't get strung out as much as here as much as they do those other tracks. And, of course, Indianapolis next week. That's going to be a place we want to come down early as we get ready to go back to green.
Hey, look at this shot off of the pace car. There's only like 4 rows of cars that are there because those are your actual race leaders. Everybody else is going to get back to the lead lap courtesy of a wave around. So we'll have 31 for the restart, and the lights are going to go back on top of the pace car. But I mean, you weren't seeing anything incorrect, Tim. Those were the 8 cars who were on the lead lap, so it looked like a small field. Now you see them all single file at the back in 3 to 4. We'll go from that small, maybe 10 or 8 lap cars on the lead lap back to 31 because everybody else stayed out and got the wave by. But I mean, that just goes to show you how many cars actually got caught out in this, that those 8 that were on the frame there down the back straightaway were actually the only ones that stayed on the lead lap. Now, everybody else hoping for another yellow, I would think, so they can actually end up getting some service.
And we'll see some of those names here up in front that we might not have seen all night long or haven't talked a whole lot about all night long. Look at that car on the outside of row number 3. How about Casey Tucker having a great run here, trying to make something happen late in this race. Nick Shelton in behind. We've seen Nick run up front a little bit earlier on in this event. He's running in the top 10, and there's Zach Novak in the top 10 as well in the late stages of this one, trying to further his playoff position a little bit closer and maybe try to get a win to lock down a spot at Homestead. And that 62 right in front of him, Keegan Leahy, we documented he's been fast all night long. But I kind of like where that 16 is sitting. Chris Overland was close to a win a couple of weeks ago, Evan. We'll see if he can get one here tonight.
All these cars up towards the front of the field looking for a first crack at a win in a NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. And we're back underway. What a jump to the inside, though. Crowder gets as good of a jump as you could expect, but the real impressive drive was Benjamin Nelson, who followed him right through. He'll take second spot away from Chris Overland. Here's the run off the quarter 2, a small bobble, so he won't make the play for the race lead.
77 Crowder has the whole field stacking up. We got cars around in the background, down on the apron, heavy contact. We're going to be back to yellow. But who is that who went around in the background? A couple of them. The 46 of Jimmy Mullis, one of your playoff contenders. First one we've seen make heavy contact here today at Darlington.
He was running in 22nd on the restart. Coming into this one is one of the more formidable options in the championship, and the problem started in front of him. You'll watch the replay here, and the 46 is going to come up onto a scene that sees Davies into the outside wall. So many times tonight, Tim, have we seen a car get that fence at a 2. You see the 7 with a run, and I mean, the 88 just overcooked the corner, but there was nowhere for Jimmy Mullis to go, and then he got slammed in the back end by the 66 of Jarl Tien, and that punted him into the inside wall, and his car is absolutely destroyed. An atrocious playoff opener for Jimmy Mullis.
And Jimmy's going to have to dig deep in those next 2 rounds to try to make something happen, but tough break for that Federated Auto Parts 400, number 46, and he'll have a couple of rounds to try to get up here, and I'm sure he'll try to get some of that damage massaged and try to salvage what he can. Keep in mind, we still have over 20 laps to go. We're going to have a couple of restarts here, I'm sure, by the way this one is playing out. As you look at the replay again, riding on board with Jarl Tien, and Jarl had nowhere to go either. A little bit of damage to that race car as well. I'm sure they'll come down and try to get that thing massaged and knocked out. But, man, a tough break for Jimmy Mullis. He had an up and down night, was working his way back towards the front after a dismal qualifying effort, and now he finds himself behind the 8 ball with about 20 laps to go.
The race leaders stay out. The one thing that onboard with Tian showed me, Randy, is he couldn't see the 88 getting into the wall because he could only see Mullis in front of him. But, I mean, even if you're Jimmy Mullis, we've talked about trying to anticipate where these issues come from. A lot of the time, if one car gets into the wall, you got the 2 or 3 behind stacked up into the wall as well. Just because you're running right behind somebody, you're kind of judging your points based on where they are because they're blocking up a majority of what you see out of the windshield there. But, I mean, when you have the 88 hit the wall like that, there's nowhere for you to go. And if you were, expecting and preparing to avoid a car getting into the wall in front of you every single lap, then you wouldn't be able to run within 10 car lengths of anybody because it could happen at any point, especially as we've seen tonight down at that end of the racetrack. So it's a big hurt for Mullis, who came into tonight with 1 race win on the regular season. So he had those 3 bonus points, so tentatively was scored in 6th position. But again, you do have to be one of the top 4 out of these opening 3 weeks, and he'll be down towards the bottom of the ladder after this evening.
And he's trying to figure out what to do. I think the pit road closed on him there right at the last second. So we're going to see him end up back out there on the racetrack and not coming down pit road for repairs, unfortunately, there for Jimmy Mullis. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's one of the difficult things about running these NASCAR stock cars on an oval. I've noticed, it's one thing that I know that a lot of people, when they first get into sim racing, it's deciphering the difference between oval racing and road racing. Road racing, in a lot of ways, you're out there racing the racetrack, and you're certainly doing that here at Darlington in these Cup cars, but you're just as much racing with the traffic around you as well, and losing kind of relying on the cars in front of you can sometimes get you into trouble when you have sights unseen and potentially cars having incidents sight unseen for you, maybe 2-3 cars up ahead of you. We saw that happen with the 66 there, but it's also at the same time following cars as they make contact with the outside wall. We've seen a couple times tonight a driver go into the outside wall and the driver behind him just follow them into it as they get tight.
And expecting the lights to go out on top of the pace car this time by. You can tell the field's ready to go because they're already doubled up and they haven't even been given the cue to do so. This time, there you go, lights out on top of the iRacing.com pace car. We're ready to rock and roll, and that onboard shot with Matt Boosa. Not all that long ago, Tim, that car was spun on the back straightaway. The little bit of damage may hurt him a bit here, but Matt Boosa, in fact, running into 4th position, the highest running car in the field with a race win in this series, coming last season at Atlanta. The 3 in front of him, Crowder, Nelson, Overland, looking for first career wins. Talk about a high-pressure situation with the restart next time by with 19 laps to go.
Yeah, trying to hang on here for the most part, I would believe, with the 5 of Matt Boosa, but we've seen some of these races play out with some multiple cautions at the end, but now with green-white checkers, going to be hard for Matt Boosa to hold on there, but we'll see what happens as we work forward here with 20 laps to go in this race from Darlington. But those top 2, you better believe they're not in the playoff hunt, but as you mentioned, very hungry for a victory and trying to get that first win. And Chris Overland in that number 16, he's tried hard. I'm sure James Gutta is up on his chair right now cheering on that number 16 as we get ready for green.
He's off and away. It is a very early jump for the 77 car, so Crowder will rocket out to the race lead with 19 laps to go at Darlington. The 16 of Overland, he'll try to step up on the inside line. Side by side with him and Ben Nelson. They'll go 2 by 2 through the corner with the 16 car winning out on the inside. Overland the second. Now he'll go to the bottom of the racetrack. Chris Overland wants to go to the race lead at Darlington. He'll go all the way down in 3. It's not going to work, and Crowder top side ring and hangs on and way tight off.
Oh, they're piling up behind. Huge pile up behind. That's going to be half the field through 3 and 4. The 21 of Alfala is in that wreck. Nick Ottinger's in it. I haven't seen any, but I'd be shocked if we don't have some blue spoilers involved in this one.
Ryan Luza notably is at the start of this wreck. There was a big checkup, and I believe the 79 is actually where the problem starts. That's Nicholas Nelson, who gets up and into the outside wall, and it's all those playoff cars behind him. Shelton got loosened up and into the fence here. You'll see that happen towards the front of the screen, and then it's all these playoff cars here. Luza, some of the other drivers, the 30 right there as well. They've got nowhere to go, and when we caught this one out of 4, you saw the 21 because Ray Alfalo was up and into the air. Ryan Luza, all 4 tires off the ground at one point, and a ton of championship implications as it just keeps pouring on our playoff drivers late.
Yeah, it looks like Cody Bias may have got the bumper a little bit of Shelton to try to spring that one off there, but a lot of damaged race cars as you ride on board once again with the Steady MD number 99 of Clampett, and he's got a little bit of damage. We'll back it up here and see what happens. And there's Cody Bias right ahead of him. So this one's going to be a really good shot, Evan, of what happened and what transpired as Cody Bias and that Mode Motorsports number 24 goes to the outside.
And the way that, again, you're just stacked up like this off for the restart, nothing you can do, and small bit of contact in the quarter. If you're closing in on the car in front of you, you can't lift because you're going to hit in the back end. So you just hope that it all works, but you'll see the contact on the outside right there. The 79 go loose. He snaps back up the hill, and then it is chaos behind them as the big one strikes at Darlington. And I was going to note, coming to the restart there, Keegan Leahy, your highest running playoff driver, scored in 6th position right now. So it was already a big shakeup of the points with your playoff drivers, but we just saw the issue not that long ago for Mullis, and at least 3 more playoff drivers involved in that one. Big implications in the championship here compared to, say, if this race ended 40 laps ago. At that point, most of your race leaders were doing a good job, but an untimely yellow, couple of wrecks off for the restarts, and it is a whole new look. Still, with a couple of restarts, I feel like left in this one.
As they continue to, we look at some more replays here. Nick Ottinger, another one of those, Evan, that was caught on the outside of this one and ended up getting swept up in it. There's the 30 of Blake Reynolds, the 53 of Ryan Luza. All really good race cars tore up here in this one, and really nowhere to go. Once something happens, it happens really quickly here at Darlington as Ottinger's trying to follow that 99 to clamp it through.
And this onboard shot again gives you the best look, and there's the bobble. The 24 might have gotten a piece, and Nick Ottinger took quite a lick on the right-hand side there, tried to fight through it, but just too much going on, and maybe avoided another shot there with the car ringing about on the inside. Who was that squeeze? I think that was Hurst, who barely found his way through it. Of course, everybody wants to get back going as soon as they can. At least a dozen cars are now on pit road trying to get repairs as this race continues to surprise us late in this playoff opener. Another factor, of course, talking about what's on the line for these drivers running up front. Jake Nichols now takes over the number 4 position on the racetrack, having just gotten around Busso. So now everybody top 4, those first 2 rows, all looking for first career wins in this series as the lights go on top of the pace car. That's a big storyline, don't get me wrong, but I think it is compounded by the fact, Randy, that a win by any driver who's not in the playoffs, of course, takes a win in your in guarantee away. If any non-playoff driver wins tonight at Darlington, we know that at least 2 spots would be open into Homestead based on points.
And you have to wonder how aggressive that 62 going to be, knowing that he's going to be restarting here 6th outside of row 3. Is he going to push this and try to snag one of those early Homestead spots, or does he know that most of his playoff contenders have had bad luck and just run here quiet and log a good day here and log good points? Going to be interesting to see as we get ready to go green. Of course, the 6 of Novak right behind him as well.
3 playoff drivers were involved in that last accident. Your highest runner of them is now 62 of Keegan Leahy, who's had a pretty good night. He's been the best car this evening, but he is P6 for another late race restart. The field's in the hands of Ashton Crowder. Waited a little bit longer this time, but it is another good jump for the steady MD Toyota. Green flag back in the air, 14 more laps to go. Watch the gap, though. We know the field's going to get a run on him, so turn 2 going to be the place to watch as here comes Overland rocketing around on the inside. He'll take second away from Nelson, but he can't clear him. The 83 car, 33 rather, going to fight back.
And there's that 16. He's got the hole open to the inside. Chris Overland trying to bring the Wood brothers to the front at Darlington. The 77 of Ashton Crowder holding that outside line. It gets tight here off of corner number 4. And oh, by the way, 2 playoff drivers side by side and now nose to tail as Novak tucks in behind the 62 of Keegan Leahy. Top 2 on that outside line. Crowder and Nelson. The battle is for third as that 20 of Nichols tries to take it away from the 16 of Overland. Here comes the train on the outside with the 62.
And the 62 machine trying to get the push from the 6, but Leahy's blocked in. He's got nowhere to go as he tries to make the pass on Overland. He'll do it at a turn 4, so you could move him up and into what I think is going to be 5th position in line. The 6 at Novak also clears as we got a lot of cars making some late dives into the corner down to turn number 1, feeling the pressure, but let's look up in the battle for the race lead. Here comes Ben Nelson closing the gap to Ashton Crowder. He got a run, but he'll check up. And look at the 6 car, Zach Novak with the dive to the inside. He'll try to get around Leahy and Nichols in one swoop, but it doesn't work.
You may have seen a similar car, but Jake Nichols, what a run for him, both him and Ashton Crowder, really putting in great efforts for their team. But 5, 6, 7 cars all fighting for the race lead. They single file back out after Novak's able to find an opening to get back up into the top groove off of turn 2 and down the back straightaway again. Is anyone going to apply pressure down to the inside this time? No, everyone's going to keep it up top and just sling this thing around. Look at the train of cars we have for the race lead. Top 7, top 8 cars all lined up nose to tail, heading down the front straightaway. The first one opening up the gap, your race leader of Ashton Crowder, as we're inside 10 to go.
10 laps to go that time by Nelson. I wonder if he's afraid to make the move to the inside. The last couple of cars that have gone low and haven't completed the pass have then had that spot on the outside line fill in, and they have gone freight trained by cars making a run up against the fence, side by side further back. That's the 5 of Matt Busa. Really the only car on the inside here. Going to get passed by Clampett, and now the 6 car of Novak again to the inside line. He's not afraid. These are your top 2 running playoff drivers going at it, and Leahy's able to make the top stick.
Novak's been able to get to the inside and drive it down deep into the corner, but it hasn't been able to stick. Now the 62 of Leahy goes to the inside, almost opened that door that time for the 6 of Zach Novak. Here comes Corey Vincent to the inside. Vincent and the Renegades, number 27, having a great run here late. Busa trying to follow him along to the inside. This is the battle for 4th on back as they dive it into 1.
It's been an impressive drive off of the restart for both Leahy and Novak to get up here to 4th and 5th position. They were running against 6th position on back, so they've been able to get around the likes of Overland and Vincent. They're still fighting with each other, though. The 6 car really wanting to make this pass for 4th on track. He'll try to get into 3, drives it in hard. He'll slot up in front of the 62. Leahy wants to go down to the inside, but what a move. Picture perfect slide job. Keegan Leahy going to drop a spot, and it is the 6 of Zach Novak down to P4. He's now the highest running playoff driver.
These guys not really giving each other an inch with the championship implications they're going to have to work with. And now it's got to be heads down. Can they maybe start working their way forward and catch the likes of Jake Nichols or Ben Nelson at the head of the field? The 33 of Ben Nelson, I made a mistake through 3 and 4 that time. That opens up a gap for the 77 of Ashton Crowder. They're going to come across the stripe, and it's going to be 0.4 of a second. The gap for the 77 of Ashton Crowder is we're getting set possibly to make it 3 weeks in a row with the first-time winner in this championship.
And I know that if you look back historically, Tim, there's no way that that's going to be a record, because obviously the first couple of years they were all new names, but it's got to be quite some time since we've seen a possibility of 3 different first-time winners in a row, and Ashton Crowder has the distance. The interval this time by between your race leader and Ben Nelson, as we see Novak wanting to challenge Nichols for 3rd, is a half a second. It's Ashton Crowder's race to lose, but these are the most critical laps of his sim racing career. Can he wither the pressure and keep it strong at Darlington?
Competition in this series has been phenomenal. There goes Novak back to the inside of Nichols. He'll look to pick up position number 3, and I think he'll have it here in the middle of 3 and 4. Now, can he get by the 33 of Ben Nelson? I think without a caution, Novak may run out of time to get up to your leader, Ashton Crowder, but the competition in this series as of late has been phenomenal. We see it with the different winners in victory lane. The steady MD, number 77, holding steady up in front. He's got to hope this thing stays green to the end to try to pick up his first career victory.
And the only way to ensure that is the first that he wants to see is the white flag. Still a chance that incident could push us into overtime. We've had some pretty exciting finishes, late restarts here at Darlington in the past. That time by, he took 3 laps to go. Here at the track, too tough to tame. The gap grows, and the fight's going to be on for 2nd position. Zach Novak, the fastest car on the racetrack. He may have time to get 2nd, but I don't think he's going to have time to go all the way to the race lead. To the inside of Nelson, another spot in the pocket. Novak all the way up now to P2.
Popsicle sticks in the air this time as they work down the front straightaway. Novak is going to have to somehow rein in nearly an 0.8 of a second margin in towards 1 and 2. The 77 of Ashton Crowder looking clean as he works down the back straightaway, and then looking in towards 3 and 4. He'll see the white time, and I think we're setting up to see a very happy Parker Kligerman on NB tomorrow.
Cody Bias gets way out of the way. There's some lap traffic further up the road, but I don't think it is going to be a factor. It is clean racetrack for the 77 of Ashton Crowder. White flag in the air. Final time at Darlington, a night that was dominated much by the talk of the playoffs, how critical a win could be for a championship hopeful, and Ashton Crowder going to be the one to steal the show. It'll be a third week in a row if he can hang on in 3 to 4. Then we've got a first-time winner, Ashton Crowder, final time at turn 4 to his first win in the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. He's got it tonight at Darlington.
It's decision time, NASCAR fans. Who gets you the points? Who gets you the wins? Who gets you the bragging rights? Who gets you the championship? Sign up and play today at NASCAR.com/fantasy.
This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing.
Green flag back in the air. 2 more laps to go. 8 drivers. 4 races. These are the moments that define champions. Zach Novak, final time to the start-finish line, takes the checkered flag and wins. Who will reach the peak? The battle begins now. Let's go playoff racing! The road to $100,000 takes to the most historic racetrack on the calendar, where tonight for the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the second race of the round of 8 in this, the 2019 eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. Happy that you're with us this evening from the Brickyard, as always, right here on Race Spot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Evan Pasoko, Tim Terry, Randy Cheneth upstairs with you tonight. And Tim, we come off of an exciting playoff opener 2 weeks ago at Darlington that saw, spoiler, Ashton Crowder taking home the race win and leaves our 8 playoff drivers without a ticket punched into the next round as we head tonight for 200 miles of action.
This is going to be critical here this evening, Evan, not only to punch your ticket into the finale, but also maybe try to get yourself a little bit closer when it comes to the point standings, because if we see another one of those drivers that spoils the party for one of these playoff drivers, we could have some more drivers in on points. So as much as the win is key, winning you're in, if you're one of those guys on the top half of the bubble, you really have to stay consistent and protect yourself going into the Roval.
And let's talk about that. So for these playoffs, Randy, win and you're in is the thing. We talked all regular season long about how it was points only, but if you're a playoff driver and you win either tonight or the Charlotte Roval in 2 weeks, you get that ticket automatically into the Homestead finale. But as mentioned, none of our playoff drivers won 2 weeks ago, so we come in tonight with a point structure looking like this. Zach Novak, best of them all at the top of the championship, 2,049 points. After all your playoff drivers were reset to 2,000 2 weeks ago, it is he. Keegan Leahy, Michael Conti, and Ryan Luza above the cut line, but it is awfully tight from there. 2 points back, Ryan Lowe. 3 points back, Bobby Zelensky. Jimmy Mullis then scored in 7th, and Reynolds down there in the number 8 position. That's the situation coming into tonight.
Garrett Lowe is the one who's in there, but yeah, you're right. It's really, really tight for all these championship contenders, and I think a bunch of them got a big wake-up call at Darlington. We saw most of our playoff drivers. They really weren't competitive. They typically didn't qualify well last week. A lot of them ran mid-pack, and a lot of them got stuck around the top 20 and below, and they all finished kind of mediocre for the most part. Zach Novak had a good run. Keegan Leahy, of course, looked good. The rest, mostly for the most part, didn't really look all that competitive. Here today, I think they came in a lot more prepared. We have 6 of them qualified inside of the top 10. Only 2 that are not starting this race in the top 10 are going to be the drivers of Garrett Lowe and Zach Novak. So I think maybe a bit of a wake-up call for all those drivers at Darlington 2 weeks back. And this 2.5-mile racetrack in Speedway, Indiana, this is going to be a fantastic run. As you said, one of the most historic racetracks here in the United States, not just on the schedule, but I mean, arguably within the entire world. And it feels a little weird doing an Indy broadcast without the race boss, one and only Will Vincent.
Well, that's what I get for skipping ahead as we look to the next one, talking about Garrett Lowe, the driver in the playoffs. I would see Ryan Lowe's name because here is what the series standings look like outside of our playoff 8. If you didn't make it in, your objective, Tim, is to fight and maintain a top 20 position in points. So left-hand side of your screen, those drivers would be qualified to compete in this series next season. Everybody on the right-hand side, including Ashton Crowder, Diaz, Duval, Overland, and Ryan Lowe, their P25. Those are the drivers who have some work to do with 2 weeks to go. But of course, the playoffs are the main concern this evening. Indianapolis has been on the schedule every single year since 2010. It's seen a couple of multi-time winners, but only one playoff driver's won here before. That was Zach Novak 2 years ago.
And as these drivers get ready to grid, remind you as well, Evan, that this race goes back to an 80-lap duration. It was 80 laps for the first 3 years that we ran here. It's been 100 for the last 6, and at the end of the day, it should be 2 pit stops, regardless how you slice it to the end, unless we have some cautions in there. It's going to be a very interesting race strategy-wise, I think, too.
Qualifying and practice have drawn to a close. Let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's Race Spot TV starting grid. And Jimmy Mullis will start this one from pole position. The 46 Toyota will bring us to the green flag tonight. He's got some points work to do. It'll be alongside the number 53 machine, fellow playoff driver of Ryan Luza. Keegan Leahy, Kurt Sherburne going to double up on row 2. It'll be 3rd and 4th on the grid for them. And Casey Kerwin, a race winner a couple of weeks back, he'll start P5.
There's another playoff driver, and Bobby Zelensky going to start in 6th, Phil Diaz in 7th, Taylor Hirsch, great qualifying effort in 8th, 9th is Blake Reynolds, and Michael Conti rounds out your top 10. Great row number 5. Watch those guys to come to the front.
Brian Schoenberg will make up the 11th spot with Nathan Lyon on his outside on road number 6. Brad Davies and Michael Griglia, they'll roll up behind them on road number 7, and Malik Ray will round out your top 15 as the field starts to roll.
Dylan Duvall's going to be on row number 8 with him, starting in 16th position. Michael Gassett, Ashton Crowder for 17th and 18th position. Ryan Lowe starting to P19 this one, and halfway to the back, it's Christian Chalner in P20.
He won here last year. It's Logan Clampett, and the steady MD number 99 rolls off in 21st. 22nd is Ray Alfala. He's won here a couple of times as well. Ben Nelson rolls the 33 from 23rd. 24th is RLT, and Chris Overland 25th.
Jake Nichols going to roll off 26 with Adam Benefiel in that 27th spot. Nick Ottinger and King Cook 28th and 29th with Logan Kress. He'll round out your top 30.
Continuing on through the rest of the field, Eric J. Smith will start 31st with Garrett Lowe, Corey Vincent, Zach Novak, and Brandon Cattell through 35th. So very notable that Zach Novak is way back there on the grid, along with Garrett Lowe, 2 playoff drivers way back here in traffic. Nicholas Shelton's going to be 36th with Casey Tucker, Timmy Hill, and Matt Busa rounding out your field of 39 cars. That's a look top to bottom at your Race Spot TV starting grid as we get set to go racing from the Brickyard. This 2.5-mile asphalt rectangular oval sees just a little over 9 degrees to bank it in the quarters. If there's any racetrack where this 2019 package is really going to have a difference, this is what expect these drivers to be flat foot early on in these runs and using a lot of draft. This initial start and any restarts that we'll see later on this evening going to be pretty chaotic, taking the long trips down these straightaways as drivers try to jockey for position. The pace car is going to dive in this time out of the quarter. It'll be Jimmy Mullis's field to control for the second race of the round of 8 as we say, let's go playoff racing from the Brickyard. Green flag in the air for the 46.
Jimmy Mullis is absolutely shot out of a cannon on the front row. He's going to lead them down the yard of bricks and down into corner number 1. The battle going to be for position number 2. Casey Kerwin giving a little shove to the 62 of Keegan Leahy on the inside. Leahy trying to take advantage and take position number 2 with Kerwin following in right behind.
The 62 car tucked on the back of the 46 as Mullis's advantage does evaporate, but nowhere for Keegan Leahy to go. He'll force the middle line now. It's Luza up top, Leahy on the middle line, and on the inside with no help is pole sitter Jimmy Mullis is going to get freight trained. 4 cars going to get around him by the time they get to turn 3, and the battle for the race lead now sees Keegan Leahy winning out on the inside. He'll try to clear Luza in turn 4, and lap 1 should go to that G2 Esports entry, but the draft is still there, and next on deck, here comes Casey Kerwin on the inside, and Chris Shearburn the one pushing him down into turn 1.
South side of the racetrack trying to live up to what the north side just gave us. It's through turn 1. Keegan Leahy on the outside is going to hold off Casey Kerwin for the moment. Through turn 2, the 14 is going to have to deal with the bump down there on the inside. Able to deal with it nicely. Now the run once again down the back straightaway. Looking towards turn 3. It's all Keegan and all Kerwin this time. No 3 wide for the race lead, but I see thinking about 3 wide, about 6 or 7 deep. Here comes that 14 car. Winner of Bristol trying to fight with the 62 and doing everything he can through 3 and 4 to pick up that race lead, but the momentum's starting to pick up and it's too good up top for the 62.
Yeah, there's more side by side than there is it right now throughout the fields, and this is exactly what we expect to see for the get-go. 2 laps down at Indianapolis. Still, the 62 of Leahy has led both of them, but Kerwin continue with the challenge on the inside, dipping those left-hand tires down close to the rumble strip at 1, as that 53 Alusa works up around him on the outside line. Side by side for second now, as Leahy does get some space, and you see that 62 car running off with the wall. That helps the 14 out a little bit. It does look like Kerwin's going to back off, trying to find a spotted line. He does. He'll squeeze behind Luza before Shearburn was able to get up on him, but race leader is going to be doing that all night long, especially off restart, snaking to the inside of the racetrack, trying to force those cars to chase the draft behind him. First set of side by side sees Michael Conti winning out in the battle with Bobby Zelensky for P5 and 6. As for the race lead, Luza looks, but he's not going to make a dive this time.
Can't make that dive that time down the front straightaway. They'll dive into corner number 1. Luza will get that run in the middle of 1. We'll see if he decides to put it anywhere on the 62 of Keegan Leahy. They pull away by a couple of lengths over that 14 of Casey Kerwin. Look at that move to the inside. The 53 slides to the inside of Keegan Leahy. Ryan Luza trying to take it down the back straightaway. They'll drag race down the back into corner number 3. Luza will have that inside line. We'll see if Keegan Leahy can dive it in on that outside.
He's going to try to keep this battle going, but the 53 car too good on the inside. At a lap number 4, the Flipside Tactics Toyota of Ryan Luza going to go to the race lead here at Indianapolis. He'll pull a couple of car lengths off the corner. It is going to be nearly impossible until you get nearly halfway through a fuel run for actually cars to be able to get separation. So you see that 62 car just suck right back up to the bumper, despite the fact that Luza's the car, Randy, who had the better exit at a turn 4. So that draft's going to keep cars in it, but Luza was able to navigate that one, took advantage of Leahy looking a little bit tight, and he'll get that clean air now as it's Luza 1, Leahy 2 with Kerwin, Mullis, and Conti. Right now, through your top 5, Michael Conti up 5 spots from where he started.
Yeah, great run there for that Junior Motorsports number 8 car of Michael Conti. Good to see him able to get to the pointy end of the field here early as the field works through 3 and 4 once again. Entire field starting to single file out. I see a bit of side-by-side in the mid-pack. I believe that's Ryan Lowe and Christian Challoner who are trying to fight for position here up and off of turn 4. You also have Ashton Crowder, the winner at Darlington last race out. He's in the midst of this fight as well, and they're fanning out 3 wide, thinking of 4 wide. They're behind him, and playoff driver Garrett Lowe's in the mix with that, as well as his teammate Corey Vincent. So fights up and down the field, and this 2.5 mile super speedway putting on some great racing here with the new tires early.
Yeah, that 3 wide saw Malik Ray on the inside. The Sunoco Racing Toyota for Richmond Raceway Sports. He kind of backed out of it on the bottom, but so did everybody else as they played a game of chicken down into turn 1. So he'll actually end up not that bad. He'll stay behind Dylan Duval, but does hold off Blake Reynolds for the time being. Of course, Reynolds coming into tonight, as Randy mentioned, Tim playoff driver, comes in 8th position. So he's got some work to do in that Team Dylan Esports entry and has dropped a couple of spots from the get-go. So the 30 car going to look to want to turn that one around as we are single file up in front of him. Race leaders actually first and second, starting to put a little bit of a gap on everybody else.
Yeah, still a long way to go for a driver like Blake Reynolds running in that 12th place position the last time by. Your top two have about a car length in between them, and then a little ways back to Casey Kerwin. And then for the most part, as you mentioned, Evan, the top 10 are really content to ride right now. Looking back outside the top 15, I think the first side-by-side battle we might see is Malik Ray in the 90 going to the inside of Dylan Duval, and that's the battle for position number 10 as they dive it down into the corner. Duval on the outside going to lose one and going to try to stop the bleeding here in front of the 30 of Blake Reynolds. That was a close call there in 3.
He slides up and is able to get the spot. We saw some of the cars even further towards the front of the field trying to do that as nobody wants to be the one car pinched up and out of line. And that's the thing when you have the draft like this, and we are starting to see some separation. Some of the wider shots you can see, there'll be 5, 6, 7 cars, Randy, all stacked up on each other as Reynolds back to the inside of Duval again for 11th, but he can't hold it down low. But then you'll also have a big gap of 7 car lengths between, 1 and 2 positions. So just the way it works out, and that 30 car, again, really wants to make it happen, but Duval, I think, has got the better line now. We're already looking at about a second of tire fall off from when we were 8 laps ago, and we took the green flag for those first hot laps. So these drivers are already feeling it.
It's got to play into your strategy here around Indianapolis of how aggressive you're going to be, because it was important as the draft seems to be here today. You don't want to be over aggressive trying to pick up spots. Sometimes you're better off just filling in wherever you're at, being that second, third, fourth, or even deeper in the field. As I say this, 62 Keegan Leahy pokes a nose to the inside of your race leader, Ryan Luza, in towards turn 1, and he's going to pick that lead up through turn 1. Let's see if Luza can maybe fire one back through the short chute. Seems like the answer to that question is going to be no, but you never want to make a pass and be so aggressive that you're going to lose a ton of ground to the cars out ahead of you, because then you just lose that slipstream, and then you just sort of lead your little pack, and it becomes impossible to lead up and run up through the field much further than that. So you got to take that into account. Sometimes you're better off, especially in these early stages of the race, first 10 laps, first 20 laps, maybe even the first half of the race. You kind of just sit patient, conserve fuel, conserve tires, and then we start getting a little bit deeper into this. I think the aggression will start picking up. I've seen a lot of room getting left on some of these passes that I think when we start getting a lap 60, lap 70 in this race, those gaps probably aren't going to be there as Keegan Leahy looks to start stretching out his little lead here. Maybe the G2 car amazingly on the old tires once again, as we've seen a few times in the last handful of weeks.
It's funny that we saw Luz look like that he was the one that conserved a little bit in those opening laps, went to the race lead, and Keegan Leahy wasn't all too worried about it. Couple of laps later, he's back and is stretching a good gap as Casey Kerwin's going to do the one now challenging Luza. He'll peek to the inside, and that peak iRacing to Ford goes side by side into 3. Luza has a very good chance again at defending up on the outside line, and if you haven't been with us for the entirety of this season, you're not quite sure who those 8 playout drivers are who are funded for the $112,000 cash prize pool, 40,000 of which will go to our eventual champion, which we'll crown in just a little bit. In fact, almost exactly a month from tonight. We'll just look for those banners, the spoilers, and the splitters. If they've got that light blue, that peak blue color, they're your playout drivers. So those are the 8 to keep in mind: Novak, Leahy, Conti, Luza, Lowe, Zelensky, Mullis, and Reynolds. And it's a playoff car in Luza winning out in this battle right now for second.
And you've got a handful of them right now in the top 10. Blake Reynolds trying to knock on the door and try to get there in that number 30 in position number 10, trying to chase down that 75 of Phil Diaz for that 10th place position. But once Keegan Leahy stepped out from this battle, 11, it looked like Ryan Luz has kind of gone on a little bit of defense mode right now. The 14 of Casey Kerwin tried that inside move. They lost a little bit of time to Keegan Leahy, but it's also closed in Jimmy Mullis. It's closed in Michael Conti, Chris Shearburn, and you look at the conga line that's forming in behind Shearburn, taking a peek to the inside of Michael Conti as they dive it down into corner number 1. He's going to try to bring Bobby Zielinski along with him. Zielinski tucks in behind the number 8, so quick little pass there, going to give Shearburn one more spot.
Chris Shearburn in the 36, another driver who lost some from the get-go and is trying to climb back towards fourth position, where he took the green flag from. He gets back at the P5 right now, and Jimmy Mullis is the driver who has settled things down. Your pole sitter, the Federated Auto Parts Toyota, he's got a challenge, though, down to the inside. The 36 is Shearburn, going to take that one back as well, so he's now back to where he started. Mullis to a race low P5, could be a lot worse, certainly. But as he tries to settle in for a run, looking at 12 laps in, again, it is an 80-lap contest this season. We mentioned that in many of the years past. It has been 100, but if we go racing for 80 laps tonight, that'll get us to 200 miles at most of these races. In the eNASCAR Antifreeze iRacing Series, half distance of what you see in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. So that's the distance for tonight's Brickyard 200, and again, that puts us in a fuel window that could see, if it were to stay green, potentially 2 pit stops in and around the high 20s to be able to go the distance. But this is also a racetrack where the yellows have kind of been finicky. Some years, not a lot, and you think when you get race cars spread out like this, it lends itself to long racing like that, and well, other races, not so much. It's kind of been a mixed bag. So far, so good. Again, uninterrupted so far. 13 laps complete this time.
Memory serves to me here, and maybe I think Tim might be able to expand on this. I think this racetrack historically tends to open up long runs in the early going because people just want to get laps logged, but with the way the slipstream works here, you really get aggressive later on in the race, and obviously in the early going, say, okay, you can take whatever spot we're running for. I don't mind shuffling out of the lead here early. Later on, though, you're not going to see that same kindness given up and down the field. That said, drivers to watch right now. Tim referenced it, referencing Luza and Kerwin and company losing a little bit of time to Keegan Leahy. Keegan circulating 3 to 4 tenths quicker around the racetrack every single lap. So he's found something. We've seen this, almost 3 or 4 weeks in a row from this 62 car, that he just has something on the tires on the old run that the only person who really can match is the 18 of Bobby Zielinski, who, even though he's unable to qualify as well as that car that he has a technical alliance with, the 62 of Keegan Leahy, he's still late here in the run, is starting to pick up time. Fight for second, the 14 of Kerwin flashes to the inside of the 53 of Luza, and he's not going to pick that spot up, but that Joe Gibbs Racing Interstate Batteries number 18 has quickly reeled in this pack for second, and he's about to go to work on Kerwin and Shearburn.
The 36 now going to be the one to go to the bottom of the 14. That had to have been at least the third time that we saw Kerwin get pretty good inside positioning on Luza for second, but just be unable to complete the pass. We'll see if it's a different story behind, and it is. Chris Shearburn, the Latardi Sports Chevy, makes that move, and he'll now go to a race-high P3, able to complete the move on Casey Kerwin. Bobby Zielinski next on deck, looking to the inside. It's a long way to go to turn number 1, and it's not a huge advantage for him off of the quarter, but the straightaway will help, but it also looks like the 14's going to lift off just a little bit. Stick the left hand out the virtual window, wave him on by. So Zielinski also gets through, so Kerwin wanted the challenge for second. Instead, he now finds himself in fifth.
And when you look at these two, it looks like the last couple laps they've been coming through the field, but now they come to position number 2 and Ryan Luza. And Ryan's been losing time to Keegan Leahy, but he's been able to keep the rest of the field behind him. And look at that run that Shearburn gets down the back straightaway into corner number 3 and makes it look easy. And he had a whole head of steam in the Latardi Esports number 36. We'll move up to position number 2, and Bobby Zielinski going to try to follow through. We talked about Keegan Leahy being really good on the long run. I think Ryan Luza might have some work to do on the shorter run as he continues to backpedal a little bit here compared to guys like Shearburn and Bobby Zielinski as we complete lap 16.
We're getting about 10 laps or so away for the window when the pit stops would open up, and if you're watching the camera angles on this fight for second, Keegan Leahy's still out there. He's just pulled to 3.7 seconds ahead. He is locked in. A two-time race winner already this season at Charlotte and at Chicagoland. Also a three-time winner last year. So he is looking to match that benchmark with a victory here this evening, and it may be one of the bigger race wins on his career if he could do so and translate this good start into a complete race. Of course, if it is a playoff driver that wins tonight at the Brickyard, they get that automatic bid in to the championship Ford finale at Homestead, Miami. But as he continues to run away, Kerwin's dropped the back a little bit from the group of Shearburn, Luz, and Zelensky, so they have an opportunity to breathe, and in fact, not a ton going on top 20, as it looks like everybody's pretty much settled themselves out in line.
Brian Luther just had a big wiggle through turn one, able to hold it. That's going to bring the 18 of Bobby Zelensky even closer. Let's see if that 18 car can pick up some speed here down the back straightaway. And looks like no. I think he had to check up for the 53 getting loose in front of him, so not going to be able to make anything of this. As behind, I think Kerwin is getting slightly bigger in the rear view as well, as those drivers are still just keen on just circulating. But what a run here for Letarte Esports here in the early goings of this race, Evan. We've seen Steve Letarte recently, I think, be pretty vocal about the performance of that group and said maybe he's a little bit on the frustrated side. They came out swinging today here at Indianapolis. Chris Shearburn right now runs second, and you have the 4 of Nathan Lyon running 13th, just outside of the top 10, trying to get up in towards that back as well. That group coming out and really putting on a good showing here today at Indianapolis.
Nathan Lyon's doing a good job maintaining that spot in 13th, the second of those two Letarte SportsRacingJobs.com Chevys, and can again keep the nose clean. I think the biggest priority at this stage in a race, and the affiliation, obviously. Steve there, former crew chief, said some conversations with those drivers about some strategy calls that have happened to the point this year already. So we'll see if maybe this race can stay green, and if any tips were passed that way, any notes were slid under the desk to his esports drivers here this evening, but both doing a pretty good job at the moment. The 14 of Casey Kerwin, not to pick on him, but he seems to be around where it's all going on right now. I mentioned that he was dropping back from Luza and Zelensky. Well, he's found himself in another group. Jimmy Mullis, P6 there as well, but Michael Conti is the one that I would watch for you in that filter time Chevy for Junior Motorsports. He's the one that has caught these two cars in front of him, and we'll see if the number 8 can make something happen.
We'll see what they can do here. I like the chances of Jimmy Mullis here tonight in this Richmond Raceway Esports car, the 46 car for Federated Auto Parts. Had a top 10 run here last season at Indianapolis. He sits 7th in the points. He was 7th here last year at Indianapolis, and right now he's running in position number 6 as he chases down Casey Kerwin, as this place gets a little bit cloudy here as we work through this race, working lap number 20. Bobby Zelensky hasn't been able to do anything with Ryan Luza like Chris Shearburn was a little bit earlier, so it almost looks like Bobby Zelensky has kind of hit that plateau right now on this run, but he's going to get a run down the front straightaway into corner number 1. Just isn't close enough to make that move.
He took a look, it wasn't going to happen, and he'll stay in line, as we did see Adam Benefield towards the back of the pack come down pit road. Maybe a 3-stopper, as we're 1/3 distance tonight from Indianapolis. This portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Peak Antifreeze, the official antifreeze of the 2019 eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. Again, still expecting the race leaders to push that extra 7 or so laps on this run, which would make it go to the distance on a 2-stopper if you're looking to make all of your trips about equidistance to get to 80 laps complete this evening, and nobody up front looking to the inside. But when you got somebody like Keegan Leahy, Randy, way out now, 4.2 seconds to Chris Shearburn, and over 5 back to that Luz and Zelensky duo in 3rd and 4th position. Would it be shocked if some of these other cars, top 5, maybe come down for the short pit we've been talking about? The tire fall off. Drivers running close to 3 seconds a lap shorter, or longer, I guess I should say, than what they were doing on those fast laps in the opening portions of the race. The short pit could save you some time.
It definitely could, but I mean, we saw it out at Michigan. We saw Keegan in a very similar situation, able to just get a point a run where the tires were just on another level compared to the entire rest of the field. And, he's able to open up a big, huge gap. People tried to short pit him, and Keegan just was able, because the pace was so good, to still run an extra 10 or 12 laps. And then he had 10 or 12 lap newer tires than everyone else out there. He only lost 3 or 4 positions, and he quickly managed to pick those spots back up and get his way back to the field. So more pit stops, though, cycling through. I see Nick Ottinger coming off pit road. I also see Brian Schoenberg come off pit road as well. And like I said earlier, this racetrack historically in this series tends to pick up a big swing of cautions in the second half of the race, Evan. Because of that, if I'm a crew chief, I might be considering that, and I might be trying to find ways to get my driver up towards the head of the field, somewhere around lap 50, lap 55, lap 60, rather than entirely playing the game for lap 80. So if I'm locked mid-pack right now, I'm trying to maybe hope that we can get that caution around that time. They can then kick up a big string of cautions around that time. It's a bit of a risk. You know, there's no guarantee that it happens, but you're definitely on the higher percentage with the way this racetrack tends to bring the yellows.
And you talk about series history, oftentimes we only had to make sure we had fuel to go the distance. But of course, with the green-white checkers instituted into the service and into this series this year, it doesn't hurt to be able to go a little bit further. Zach Novak, your championship leader in the 6 car, came into tonight at the top of the grid of the 8 cars, but started way back in 34th position in this race. He had gotten up to 22nd. He has already come down pit road. So that is a notable car back in the fray that has already come down to the pit lane, so he'll blend it back out there, and obviously given that circumstance, just sort of mix things up a little bit to make up for the either dismal or lack of qualifying effort earlier on to get back into this thing. Still waiting for the cars up front to decide to pull the trigger. You got fast cars like Ottinger sweeping in and out through some of the fast cars that have yet to come down to the pit lane, and Chris Shearburn from second spot, the 36 car, down pit road at lap 24.
So we'll see when that forces the hand of Keegan Leahy and some of those up in front with Shearburn coming down onto pit road that last lap by. I'm intrigued that Michael Conti is still out on the racetrack. We mentioned that Nick Ottinger and Brian Schoenberg already pitted. I know they work strategy together with Chief Brandon Hastings on top of the box, so maybe a little bit of a differing strategy from those two compared to what we're going to see out of the JRM number 8 of Michael Conti, currently running in position number 6. Up in front, Keegan Leahy in the 62 car will sweep out of corner number 4, and I believe he'll stay on the racetrack on this lap to complete 25. On the racetrack, the 53 of Ryan Luza, though, is going to peel onto pit road, so P2 is headed down towards the attention of his crew.
Both of the cars behind race leader Keegan Leahy have come down to the pit lane. Bobby Zelensky from 3rd is in. Casey Kerwin as well from 4th, also going to come down pit road. So a trio of top 5 cars are in. Jimmy Mullis deciding not to come down that time, so your pole sitter passes all of them at a front straightaway. He'll jump up to 2nd position at the moment. Michael Conti down tentatively scored 3rd. Phil Diaz and Taylor Hurst, the rest of your top 5. But again, expecting these drivers to be in within about 2 laps. The advantage of Indianapolis being such a big racetrack, I know it is a long pit road, but if you're a top 5, top 10 car, you can probably stay on the lead lap. If you're, in the 20s and, already 15, 16 seconds off for the race leader, it might not happen, but that does take a little bit of the risk of the short pit out. You hate coming down to the pit lane early and getting caught a lap down, and you can see Leahy now passed it by a lot of those cars who were fresh down to the pit lane. Use that access road down on the inside of turns 1 and 2 to get up to speed. You could pretty much keep it flat-footed around if you know what you're doing, but it does take a long time to actually get back up to speed because you're slow off of 2. I think mainly here at Indy compared to other racetracks, takes the longest actually from when you get out of pit road to get back up to song.
Yeah, it is a pretty big run there coming off of pit road, but especially in terms of the gearing, you're going to have that car geared, I think, a little bit taller than you will at some of these other racetracks. As you see some of these cars getting up to speed. Look at the 14 of Casey Kerwin. As actually your race leader, the 62 of Keegan Leahy. He's not going to wait too much longer. Comes down pit road, this time off of turn 4, and going to get down to pit road speed. The other thing that's nice about this racetrack, Evan, for all the ovals that we run, I think this is about the flattest braking area to get onto pit road that drivers are going to have this year. The likes of Daytona and Talladega, I think, are going to be somewhat similar, but of course you're going 20, 30 miles an hour quicker when you're in the big draft groups trying to get the car slowed down from 190, 200, 210 miles an hour. Here out of the corners, you're only doing about 182, 183, so a bit slower, and it's a very, very nice and flat run down towards the pit road entry point, as opposed to having to drop off the apron like you typically have to do everywhere else. And it's going to be the 75 of Phil Diaz who will pick up the race lead. He is yet to come down pit road for service.
I think the fact also that it's straight into pit road, running right alongside the front straightaway helps as well. You mentioned some of the racetracks where we do have more space, like Daytona. I think those are crazy for their own reason because we're plate racing, but also by the time you get to pit road, it's a sharp left. So just because you're at pit road speed by the cone doesn't mean you're making that corner if you've got it locked up. So maybe Indianapolis does lend itself for drivers to get a little bit more out of it, just being that straight shot in as they cycle off of turn 4. Of course, any sort of a mistake in that sharp end of the pit road wall could end your night very quickly. So Leahy is going to blend back up into traffic. Your new race leader is the Motorsports Ford Mustang of Phil Diaz, carrying the flag for that team today. Brad Davies, the other junior motorsports entry, scored in second position. Nathan Lyon third. So we'll see where Leahy blends back out in all of this, but looks like he'll be about 17th position or so, and just waiting for everybody else, obviously, to complete the cycle of pit stop. So we get a really good idea of where he's at as he goes side by side with Chris Sherbert, which will be for position, but he does get that spot away on the fresh rubber.
And looking at this battle for the lead, the 75 of Phil Diaz was hanging around the top 10 before this cycle of pit stop started. Brad Davies in behind him, and Brad's getting those runs out of the corner all the way up to the back of the 75, the Mode Motorsports car, but he's not able to really make the move on Diaz for the lead position. Diaz, though, in the 75, leading laps here, holding a pretty good wheel up in front. Nathan Lyon scored in third, about a second and a half or so behind this battle for that top spot, but Brad Davies seems to be getting these runs down the straightaway. Just it doesn't run, it runs out of time, it runs out of real estate really to do anything with it, Evan, going down into the corners.
Yeah, so that's something that we'll watch as this continues to run on, and obviously these drivers have been putting in thousands of laps as Sherbert and Luza now side by side for what will become second position. Luza gets that away for what is actively 18th and 19th on the racetrack. So actually kind of surprised by how many cars are stretching this one out. Again, to be able to go halfway and split this race for just the one stopper, you'd have to get to 40. I'm not sure if these tires are going to make it that far, but with this many cars staying out, obviously a lot of drivers trying to make something happen. Normally our fuel window wraps up at 5 to 6 laps or so, but not the case right now, as that battle between Diaz and Davies, actually a pretty good battle for the race lead as we wait for all of this to cycle through.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting call here, Evan, and I think maybe there's a bit of a window, even if they can't make it to the halfway point and go on a single tank, maybe they're thinking they can just get such a short splash and dash that it can be worth it. We're going to have to wait and see, of course, as time tells who's it's going to favor, but Phil Diaz off the throttle for turn 4. He's coming down pit road on lap 31, so he just ran it a little bit late, maybe hoping to catch a yellow and stay out. I still think it's a great call, though, Evan, even if you're running mid-pack like these guys were pretty much up until this point. Run a little bit more patient, run a little bit longer into the run. We're seeing the huge pace difference on old tires versus new tires, and maybe you hope that in the the craziness of the pit stop sequence, you get drivers on new rubber, maybe get into one of those race cars out there on the racetrack that's on old tires, maybe cause some sort of an incident, bring out a yellow, and then suddenly you've just gained 10 or 12 spots when everyone will basically be down pit road the next time, under the caution. So I still think it's a good call, especially to do so here early, and I think they're going to be in not the worst case situation once we get to about lap 60, 65 next time we see them down pit road, and I think Brad Davies is looking towards pit road this time as well.
So the 88 machine from the point's going to come down pit road. The other G2 entry of Jarl Tien down pit road. Kane Cook from third is in. Benjamin Nelson from fourth. So Brandon Cattell going to get an opportunity to lead some laps in the number 80 Chevrolet. It's his opportunity to get out in front. Just that lap prior as well, Keegan Leahy had re-cracked the top 10 as what I guess we'll refer to as our net race leader once everything cycles back through. We did see Sherbert by that undercut actually get in front of him when Leahy returned to the racetrack again. He was behind the 36. He was able to pass him back quite easily, and actively on the racetrack he's already pulled away by about 3 to 4 seconds. So for the 62 machine, he should be able to go back to the point once the 80 car wraps up pit stops, and we'll see how long Cattell could go as he's pushed at 33 laps, but the car started P35. Can't blame him. I like the call. You might as well stay out, try to make something happen.
I don't think you push it any longer, and there goes the 80 car, the mane and tail number 80 down onto pit road, and that will complete our cycle of pit stops. Keegan Leahy will go back to that lead position here in just a few moments' time. I know Timmy Hill pitted the lap before as well, so as soon as the 62 gets it back to the line here, he should cycle back to the lead position and put that G2 Esports car back up to the top of the scoring pylon. Indeed he will, as they drive it down into corner number 1. Keegan Leahy's lead on Ryan Luza nearly 4 seconds back, and Chris Shearburn hanging out there for P2 as they work around on lap number 34.
As the 80 car gets his service, it blends back out. That's a bow tie on your first cycle of green flag pit stops today at Indianapolis, incident-free through 34 laps of action. And for this moment, all 39 cars that started this race are all scored on the lead lap as well. Sometimes you might have, some smaller incidents in the opening goings, or some drivers that just have incidents on their own, whether it be some sort of technical issues drop out, but everybody's in this one as we close in on halfway home. Another driver we wanted to update you on, and it's a good battle actually. Zach Novak funnied with the 17 of Michael Guest for position, so this is a fun exchange as the Roush Fenway Racing teammates are battling at it. Novak in that 6 car trying to get 16th position away from him, again as the playoff driver who started deepest in the running order in 34th position. It's actually going to update to be a fight for 16th and 17th, with Novak trying to catch his teammate in front of him.
And what a tale of 2 playoff races for the 6 of Zach Novak. Comes out of Darlington. He was easily the best, I think, playoff driver there, especially in the late goings. That's why we see him as the points leader. And then here today, just kind of qualifies in your mid-pack. Well, actually, even worse than that. He qualified in 34th position, well and truly in the back of the field, and has slowly worked his way up in towards the top 20. I think he might still be the last running playoff driver. Having a quick look, I think I'm right there. So doing a good job trying to rebound here and get his way up through the field, but the problem is all his championship contenders, I think, are out the windshield for him, none of the rear views. Here comes that 4 of Nathan Lyon, I think slightly fresher tires. He's going to pull up the inside of the number 6 car here down the front straightaway, and that move's going to be pretty much done before they ever get to turn 1. Also behind them, watch the 75 of Phil Diaz and Brad Davies, 2 of the last cars to pit on the cycle, and they have big speed through the short chute into 2.
They're going to get the upper hand in this exchange. Fight is also on for second position. Ryan Luza is going to get tagged up by both Chris Shearburn and Bobby Zelensky. Both of those cars making the pass. So Ryan Luza, who was running in second position, was onto the pit lane early in the exchange after he came down at lap number 25, is going to allow those cars by. They pitted about the same time as him, and now the 18 wants more. So Zelensky to the inside of Shearburn. He'll also not put up a huge challenge as these drivers realize, with the fall off we're seeing tonight, how critical it is to just take care of your equipment. Probably not worth preventing somebody from passing you for an extra lap and a half at the exchange of burning up those tires even that much more. But that exchange for second, third, and fourth will put Luza to the back of this pack there, Shearburn in the middle, and Bobby Zelensky climbing up to second position, the highest we've seen the Interstate Batteries Toyota under green flag conditions so far this evening. So that Joe Gibbs Racing car having a very good run, albeit it is still nearly 6 seconds behind Keegan Leahy, who is still way out in front of the field by almost a mile, maybe literally, as he's putting on a show here, closing in on halfway home.
I think the slickest little move out of that little exchange was for Bobby Zelensky to get by Ryan Luza as quick as he could and then set up Chris Shearburn, and now you can see he's pulling away from the 36. He's pulling away from the 53 car, and I think we saw this on the first run, Evan. Ryan Luza on the longer run, if we go about 10 or 12 laps, that car really starts to plateau and kind of fall off the cliff when it comes to those other cars that he's running around within the top 5 or so. The next one on the list would be Casey Kerwin, about 2 seconds or so behind Ryan Luza, but he's still got a legitimate top 5 race car right now. It just seems like on that longer run, he doesn't have what guys like Keegan Leahy and Bobby Zelensky have underneath their race car's short run. I think if we get a caution with 5 laps to go at the end of this race, I think Ryan Luza might very well be the car to beat. But the long run, and we've seen this multiple times on this build, Keegan Leahy continues to pick him up and lay him down up in front. But Bobby Zelensky, we'll see if he can kind of make up a little bit of ground here as we work on.
And you talk about a new build, just saw a new build come to the iRacing.com service in the last couple of days. It didn't really affect these 2019 Cup cars all that much, but if you're a fan of other things on the service, some tire model updates, damage updates, a couple of new racetracks as well. So it's always evolving on the iRacing service. Oftentimes, if some tweaks are made that do affect these Cup cars, drivers will have to kind of adjust to that on the fly. I think a big example was obviously getting this 2019 package right out of the get-go at the start of the season, trying to figure that one out. And I think drivers have had enough time to get well acquainted. Keegan Leahy's certainly well acquainted. When Tim mentions, Randy, how good he's been on the long runs this season, arguably nobody better at making a race car last a long run.
You say that, but right now his Coanda teammate, the 18 of Bobby Zielinski, like we've talked about, that technical relationship there is lapping about a tenth quicker than Keegan every trip around the racetrack. We know those two work together, and the 18 of Bobby Zielinski, he hasn't been able to show it in many of the races. He tends to get trapped down in traffic, but he's starting to work his way forward. And even though, I mean, it is a 6-second gap, I don't think Bobby Zielinski is anywhere near the realm of chasing down that 62, but it's the first time we've seen this in a long time. Bobby on tires that are about a lap or so older, able to outpace the driver in that number 62 car of Keegan Leahy. But you mentioned it though, Evan, you're right. It was an awesome build this past week 13 we had the off week, as Bobby once again goes a tenth and a half quicker than the 62 car of Keegan Leahy. A lot of stuff coming in that build. Most notably, I've been having a lot of fun in that front wheel drive touring car that we see running the IMSA Michelin Pilot Series. Just nice to have something different come to the sim on the roadside, and that car is a blast to wheel around. I suggest anyone to try it out.
Well, kind of funny that you also mentioned, as we look at the number 77 machine of Ashton Crowder here in this exchange, Zach Novak there as well, who has actually been going to backwards after this exchange of pit stops. Last time we saw him, he was up in 17th, so Ashton Crowder going to try to make a move on him. He'll peek to the inside, and your race winner from Darlington 2 weeks ago, challenging for this position on the racetrack. Back to the point that we mentioned about Zielinski, Tim, we were actually talking off at the top about our 8 playoff drivers and the fact that if another non-playoff driver were to get the race win tonight, then we would be guaranteed 3 positions in on points headed to Homestead. Of course, if Leahy can get the job done tonight, it would only be a maximum of 2 going forward if it were to be another playoff driver to win. But it's the Roval coming up, and that's a racetrack that Bobby Zielinski handled easily in Sonoma earlier this year. King of the road courses, I think I called him. So not that you want to push it to that point and be in a must-win situation, but Bobby Zielinski's running great tonight, but he's also has a very good racetrack coming up for him in 2 weeks.
And you circle a guy's name like Michael Conti and maybe Keegan Leahy as behind Bobby Zielinski, because we saw him so quick at Sonoma, but we saw Ashton Crowder a little bit earlier battling with Zach Novak, and Zach obviously, as a caution flag comes out for the first time this evening, just past halfway.
First one at lap number 43, the caution flag is out, and I believe it's the 2 car of Kane Cook. I think it's the far end of the racetrack, and it looks like it was contact in turn 3, and we'll get a look on the Race Spot TV replay. This was a battle for 31st and 32nd. Kane Cook completed the move, and I'm not entirely sure what the move was here for the Williams car of Brian Schoenberg. It actually looked like he kind of gave it to him just tucked in line, but I'm thinking maybe he wanted to cross him up because he drove right back into him and takes the 2 car out, both of those cars into the outside wall.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I don't know if maybe they were racing hard previously and we just didn't see it, or if Schoenberg just misjudged the gap, but I kind of see it the same way as you, Evan. There's definitely no room down there by the inside, and even saying that, Schoenberg nowhere close to getting the nose down there to the inside, so maybe it had a run-in with the 2 car in the last handful of laps previously and was a little bit tired with the 2 car, or Schoenberg just flat out misjudging it and sending the 2 around, but either way, going to result in our first caution of the day, and I think this is what the 18 of Bobby Zielinski needed. We've seen him be impressively quick on this second tire run. Now he's going to be reset with that 62 of Keegan Leahy. This is going to be a fun fight to watch, especially when you have the likes of Shearburn and Luza and Reynolds, who were so good on new tires, stacked up behind him.
And on lap number 44, this is also an interesting spot because we expect him to see our race leaders down pit road. We were talking about how these races tend to go at Indy. You get that run early, but You get a caution flag, you get in a rhythm. If we do see a handful of yellows, it's not going to be as big of a deal, but if we get another good run to the end of this race, we are right on that fuel number, this time by being at 36 to go. Wouldn't be totally shocked if some cars towards the back of the pack come down pit road for service, but also top off as we get a one to go.
Yeah, I look at the trends, though, in this race. We've only had one race here at Indianapolis that had one yellow flag. That was actually the last time we ran an 80-lap distance back in 2012 as the field comes down into pit road. We did have a race with 2 cautions back in 2014, and actually both of those races won by Ray Alfala. So we'll see if Ray can bring that number 21 car a little bit closer towards the front of the field if this thing does decide to have a green flag look to it. But Keegan Leahy and the rest of the field coming down onto pit road. I believe Timmy Hill may have stayed out on the racing surface, but for the most part, everybody making their way down onto pit road.
And the 62's got a long trip down. Let's see if any of those other cars at pit stalls 2 and 3 for Luz and Polster Bullis can gain a spot here on the pit lane. Short run, but 4 tires and fuel going to be the call for all of your race leaders. Leahy's got his 4. He'll race off of pit road. And in a drag race, Zelensky almost got him on the outside, but barely hanging on. Keegan Leahy maintains that race off of pit road. Zelensky, Luz, Kerwin, and Sherburne, the next 5 through behind him. But we did see a couple of cars go out of the pit lane before these drivers did. Brandon Cattell was one of them. I believe that was just a drive-through, and the number 7 car of Ryan Lowe may have missed his stall. He also ended up driving through, so that's why you saw those 2 cars exit first. The leader in all of this is still going to be Keegan Leahy, as the 63 car of Timmy Hill stays out to get a lap back.
And it's going to be interesting to watch here, Evan. You mentioned it, the fact that in these next 1 to 2 laps, drivers will have the opportunity to duck down pit road and take fuel once again. And if I'm at the head of the field, I'm definitely not giving up all this track position for the exact reason that Tim just said, that you're going to be in a very, very tough situation should this race start stacking up on yellows, just in terms of track position. But if I'm stuck in the mid-pack on back, if I'm stuck 30th, if I'm stuck 35th, I think a great person who should do this, the 6 of Zach Novak. That Roush Fenway car simply does not have the speed today. If I'm Zach Novak and if I'm the person on the box, I'm gambling that this race is going green. I'm bringing him down pit road the next time we come down by pit road, topping him up, and I'm gambling that we go to the end on gas, hoping those guys can't make it. I think that'd be a great decision for that team and that organization to make, and anyone else down there in the running order, I think same thing as well, as all these guys are saving hard under this yellow. You tune in on everyone. Everyone's either clutching it or even powering the cars completely off, coasting. So everyone trying to get the fuel number to get there to the end.
80 mile an hour pace speed, so you do got to keep the momentum up as the running order has updated on the scoring pile, and we are past halfway from Indianapolis. So let's take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally sanctioned series by the likes of NASCAR and many more. Lap number 46 of 80, Keegan Leahy's your race leader, but his advantage to the rest of the field is what's missing. Bobby Zelensky going to be scored in second position, with Ryan Luz behind in third. Continuing on through, Casey Kerwin will restart at 4th position, and Chris Shearburn's going to be in 5th. Jimmy Mullis in the number 6 spot, with Blake Reynolds in 7th. Michael Conti has scored 8th position. 9th is Malik Gray, and Taylor Hurst rounds out your top 10.
In behind them, going to be Logan Clampett. Next up in 11th, Ray Alfala. Right in behind him in 12th, Brad Davies 13th, Corey Vincent in 14th, and 15th will be Nathan Lyons. 16th will be Garrett Lowe, one of your playoff drivers. In behind him, Dylan Duval in 17th. Brandon Cattell just came down pit road, so Phil Diaz will move up the scoring monitor. Christian Chalner, and it looks like Ryan Lowe will be next up in line.
Timing freaking out as a couple of cars do make trips down pit road. I have Christian Chalner in 21st, Michael Guest 22nd, Ashton Crowder in 23rd, Matt Busa 24th, Michael Griglia 25th, Jarl T in 26th, Jake Nichols in 27th, with Nick Ottinger, Logan Kress, and Ben Nelson rounding out your top 30. Next 10 will be drivers who have made trips down pit road for a second time. And there's a number of drivers actually coming down pit road again right now. I see about 8 of them near the back of the field.
Yeah, Nelson's going to bring this group on. So 30th on the back, pretty much back down pit road to top off. It'll be Ben Nelson, Adam Benefield, Casey Tucker, Zach Novak, Eric Smith, Matt Busa, Chris Overland. And in 38th position is Timmy Hill. He's the last car running on the lead lap. That's been a look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. And if you use promo code PR-eNASCAR 2019, you can get your first 3 months as a new member for just $10. That comes with all the cars and tracks you need to get your official sim racing career started. Again, that is PR-eNASCAR 2019, and it is valid to new iRacing memberships only. So with the lights going out on top of the pace car, the big question is Bobby Zalenski going to be able to stick with the 62 on this first run? That is assuming that we could buck the trend of having a handful of yellows at the Brickyard and we actually see a green flag run in this race. Stats would tell us we got a couple of these race starts due up, but on that last long green flag run, Leahy got way out in front. Zalenski started to close just before the caution flag came out. This portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Blue Dev Diesel Exhaust Fluid, certified pure #1 diesel exhaust fluid. And as the number 62 machine gets set to bring us back to the green flag, we'll let you listen to this one with some Race Spot TV fan immersion. Green flag back in the air at Indianapolis. And you can see these drivers using the draft off of the restart. A lot of 3 wide included, maybe for second place there. Ryan Luza going to go into the bumper of Chris Shearburn, trying to peak low. It is not going to happen, but your new race leader at all of that is Bobby Zalenski. The 18 car weathered the storm. He ends up in front as Ryan Luza now is back in the chaos. He's got Leahy, the 14 car there as well of Kerwin. They're side by side, a couple of rows deep. But Tim, I'm just impressed we made it through those few laps.
I don't think we're done yet, though. The 53 of Ryan Luza, hot on the back bumper, the 36 of Chris Shearburn. They both tried to make that inside move at the same time on each other, along with that 62 of Keegan Leahy. The 36 may have scraped the wall off of corner number 4. If not, he came close, lost a little bit of momentum. 53 poked that nose to the inside, trying to make something happen there. Watch for Ryan Luza to try to make a move here, Evan. He's very good on the short run. He's got to make up all he can now through the short shoot down to 2.
And this time he will find that inside positioning on Shearburn. He's going to put it to him, and just like that, well-executed move for the G Fuel Toyota, as it is Luza into second, and he knows the 36 is going to come right back at him, so he goes low, he goes high, trying to break the draft and it is going to be good enough just to keep Shearburn from challenging back into 3. And now with a better time through the corner, he'll use this end of the racetrack to pull some distance, and lose staking his claim on second position, and in fact drafting up on Bobby Zalenski. So Randy, we wondered if this restart would give the 18 a good opportunity. Keegan Leahy struggled a little bit running into 4th spot right now, and it's the 18 and the 53 now fighting for the race lead.
But remember, field number is still very much of a concern here. And if you're trying to make it to the end, you don't want to be the car leading the group. You want to be able to get in behind a car and run in the slipstream, be able to breathe that throttle going down the straightaways, but not give up much time. If I'm Ryan Luza, I do not pass this 18 car unless we are inside 2 laps to go. If this run goes green, I am completely fine sitting here in this second spot, and I just breathe the fuel as much as we can to get to the end of the race, should it go green from here. May seem a little counterintuitive. Maybe if you're that 53 car, maybe you want to try to build a lead, but I think I gamble on the fuel at the moment, because you know if this race goes green, it's going to be tight for everyone, and especially tight for that 18 car, because he's the one who's having to cut through the air.
And we mentioned right for the get-go that maybe the maximum you could go on fuel was 36 laps, and well, that was the bio marker left by the time we came down to the pit lane under the yellow. So a lot of cars towards the back of the pack. We saw them come down, top off. They should be good, and of course all your race leaders were saving hard. They are even in turn 4 coming to the green flag, trying to get every little last drop save they could. If this one will go through the distance, lap 80 and mile marker number 200 from Indianapolis. But the concern now, if I'm Keegan Leahy, is even if I am conserving, I am starting to lose some significant time. It has been his race, all the 62 car, up until this point. Again, he had that large advantage, but the caution flag came out, it was evaporated. He's now 1.2 seconds behind your race leader. So we talked about these packs of cars drafting, and sometimes they break away from one another. The top 2 are putting some distance, which even if you are driving a little bit harder now, it would be more difficult for Leahy to make up time without all of that drafting help, should it come down to that a little bit later on.
We saw the race pace of Bobby Zalenski and Chris Shearburn on the long run be right there with Keegan Leahy, but obviously Keegan had that track position, got out front, built a huge lead on those first 2 runs there to that first caution flag, and right now in position number 4. We'll see what Ryan Luza's car does here in the next 5 or 10 laps or so. I like what Randy said strategy-wise, stay behind Bobby Zalenski, make that move with a couple laps to go, but you've got to be there first, and we've seen that number 53 fall off after about 10 to 12 laps or so, and right now falling off a little bit, about 2/10 back from Bobby Zalenski. Might be trying to save a little bit, but might also be that run because Chris Shearburn is closing in on that 53 of Ryan Luza as they work through the short shoot through 1 and 2. Keegan Leahy back there as well, and Casey Kerwin rounding out your top 5. Great run for that number 14 car as we work in the second half of this one.
And more funning going on inside of the top 10. The number 90 machine, Malik Gray, we mentioned him already. The Sudoku Racing Toyota scored in 8th position right now, under attack by a driver who we haven't really mentioned a ton tonight. That's the 99 Logan Clamp at the Steady MD Toyota for Burton Kligerman Esports. He is car length and a half off for the back of the Donnie in front of him, and he's got friends coming. Blake Reynolds, Cordy Vincent, couple of cars with about a car length and a half between all of them, racing down the front straightaway as they want to do battle.
Yeah, this whole field has really calmed down, hasn't it, from these opening couple laps of the restart. We were seeing 3 wide, nearly 4 wide up and down the field. Now it's basically one single file train that's about 38 cars deep as they run through 1 and 2. Everyone not being too aggressive with one another. And I will say, Evan, I think if you're one of those cars that came down pit road on the second trip or even the third trip past it during the last yellow, I think you want to kick up the aggression a little bit. If you're the likes of Zach Novak, Ben Nelson, Matt Busa, Chris Overland, any of those cars that came down pit road and topped up that extra time under the yellow, I think this is going to be one of those situations. Maybe you use that gas a little bit and apply some pressure on these drivers that didn't make that trip down pit road. That said, the 18 of Bobby Zalenski, I don't think he's gambling for a yellow flag. It looks to me like Bobby's going full send. So if we go green, he's going to be one of the drivers I'm really concerned of if he can even make it.
He is not showing Any sort of conservation here up front continues to keep the right foot down. Now a second and a half ahead of Ryan Luza in second position. So while Shearburn has closed the gap to Luza, I think maybe it's more so Luza dropping off of Zelensky when they were 1-2 and had looked like maybe that was going to be the duo that was going to pull away, and he's dropped a little bit back to Shearburn because Shearburn hasn't gotten much more distance from Leahy. That's still about a half a second. It's been that way once all of this got sorted out. So we'll see if Luza, who again we mentioned good on the short runs, could keep this thing going for a long run here and try to fight off the likes of Shearburn and company, who are starting to smell blood in the water tucked in line behind him. Single file though through your top 10, your top 20 even this time down the front straightaway. Close it in on 30 laps to go at Indy. I guess past that point I mentioned off for the restart, but actually closing in on 22 to go at the next time by, with the 18 car way out in front, clean track ahead of him.
Been a fast-paced race so far here at Indianapolis, and keeping an eye on that 36 of Chris Shearburn, was closing in rapidly on that 53 of Ryan Luza, but now that he's in the slipstream, I wonder how much he's going to try to save here and try to conserve a little bit for the end of this race. Keegan Leahy, we saw him saving off the restart. He's about 8 car lengths or so in behind the 36 of Chris Shearburn, so he's likely got a little bit of that slipstream and maybe trying to do the same thing. Ryan Luza in that second place position. He's about 2 seconds or so, or close to it, off of that Bobby Zelensky car, so he's poking a lot of the air through here too.
Something I want to get into, I'm going to break our pattern here. The 18 of Bobby Zelensky, he had a big lift through the center of turn 1. He actually clutched that car and got completely out of the throttle. So the 18 of Zelensky is shifting into a hardcore fuel save. You don't typically, when the cars are at speed, you don't typically want to clutch like that. That's actually less efficient. It's a lot better to just lift off the throttle. He does it again in towards turn number 3. Best way to fuel save in these cars is going to be just to lift, because when you do that, you don't actually burn fuel at all. It's the way engines work in real life as well. You let off the throttle and it stops injecting fuel into the motor. Just lets the momentum of the rear tires and the fact those rear tires are rolling keep the engine spinning. So Bobby clutching in like this, actually I think making his fuel economy situation worse. But whole field, I think, maybe starting to switch into hardcore fuel save mode.
It's funny, Bobby Zelensky was 0.3 of a second slower that time by than he was the time before. And as we listen on board with that 18 machine, you could hear, let's listen in when we get down to 3 what it was. The lap before this, though, Zelensky was the only one still running a 50-second lap time. Everybody else was up in the 51.1s and the 51.2s, but as you'll hear him come back into turn 3 now, as he starts to save, everybody else has either. So I was expecting to see that 2-second advantage fall off, but he started saving when everybody else started saving. So they all pushed hard right off of the restart, and now they know how far they have to make it if they're going to go to the distance. This time by 60 laps down and 20 laps to go from the Brickyard.
And a quick little swap for position number 2 back here as well. Shearburn takes that spot away from Ryan Luza, and Luza able to keep with that 36 of Chris Shearburn the last 2 laps, and they've got a dancing partner in Keegan Leahy in behind, and actually not too far behind is Casey Kerwin. Jimmy Mullis is on his back bumper. Michael Conti a couple of car lengths in behind him, and so on and so forth. I think the biggest gap from about 2nd all the way back through your top 10 is the one from 7th and 8th right now. It's about a half second between Michael Conti and Malik Ray. Malik having a great run here once again in the top 10. He's had a lot of great runs in the second half of this 2019 season. Really great to see him come into his own as a driver in this peak Antifreeze Series, but wants a little bit more than an 8th place run right now, but he's going to try to get up here and battle with this conga line for position number 2 on back.
This time by, again, starting to close into the end. This final portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Herculiner Truck Bed Liner. The tough comes easy. And you'll actually see a car on the inside of the racetrack. Your race leaders, Ashton Crowder, was back on pit road. So for the 77 machine, he was running in 29th position. I didn't see him get any damage, so maybe he feels like he wasn't good on fuel, and a bunch of cars maybe coming in to top off.
Christian Challoner just did the same thing. So maybe those guys, knowing they can't make it to the end of the race here and coming down pit road early, I don't mind that call actually, but I think it locks you down the running order a little bit too early here, Evan. But maybe you come down, you get new tires, and you start sending it here. If people start running out of fuel, or if they have to hit pit road, you're going to have a huge pace advantage. What a run it would be for the 77. He could somehow pull something off from these guys. Pull off maybe a couple wins in a row, but he'll have to outduel the 37 of Challoner if he wants to go with that. Parker Kligerman may be suggesting, as you see the 77 breeze by the 18, that he's actually, the 18 car is actually turning the car off completely. Maybe something he's doing. I'll keep a listen and keep an eye to the revs as he goes in towards turn 3. I'm not 100% sure that's what he's up to, but man, oh man, this fuel save strategy is actually, the 18 of Zelensky now gets a little bit of drafting help from the 77. He doesn't actually do any saving at all through 3 and 4 this time.
And maybe the draft is going to allow him to just take it a little bit easier, only go about 90% throttle or so on the straightaways, but looks like Crowder and the fresher tires are going to pull away, so that drafting support is going to be very short-lived. And when it comes to drivers, if you have gotten to the point where you feel like you're not going to be able to make it on a fuel, you could do it now or you could do it later, I suppose, Tim. If you know the amount of fuel that you're short of, you could do that short pit now, just get that splash of fuel and go, or counterintuitively, if you want to mix it up a little bit, go in there and might as well fill it up, but go for the 4 tires, which obviously is a lot longer of a pit stall than just that splash. But if the splash is now with a tank half full, or the splash comes with it sputtering at the very end, if that's all you want, it's going to cost you the same amount of time. So the question is, for drivers in that position, would they want tires or not? And we'll see if any notable drivers, because again, the cars that we've actually been seeing come down, we saw Crowder, I mentioned to it, most of these cars were not top 5 cars that come down to the pit lane, but Ashton Crowder was on the racetrack before he pitted. He was in 29th. That's kind of the part of the racetrack where we saw cars come in to top off anyways, as we see the 8 machine now come down pit road. So that's a big one. Michael Conti from the top 10. Those were the cars that I was saying we need to look for, because they were the ones that pitted in cycle, that didn't have an opportunity to top off and take a defending track position. If Conti's coming in, I'm questioning every single car in the top 15.
And you know what? You look back here through the field, Evan, we talk about drivers that might have the right strategy down. Keep in mind, we had about a half dozen or so come down pit road on that last lap of caution. If this thing does go green the distance and there is no green-white checkers, I kind of look at those guys, if not a win, maybe a top 10 run here, because they're going to go the full distance to the end. I know Justin Prince probably has a list for us, but guys like Casey Tucker at the back of the field, Timmy Hill was on that strategy as well. There's a name that we look at this series that's synonymous with racing with fuel strategy races down to the end. He stretches it as far as he can go. We saw Brandon Cattell in the first run stretch it as far as he could go in that number 80 car. So I think those guys are probably the safest right now if, and that's a big if, this thing goes green to the end of the race. And one nail you hit on the head a little bit earlier, Evan, if we do get a late race caution, somebody gets upset at each other, they'll push it and shove it at the very end, and it triggers some green-white checker finishes, you're going to want to be safe for that one as well. And we're about to have a battle for second on our hands. Keegan Leahy has really turned the wick up the last couple laps. He's looking at that Letarte Esports number 36 for position number 2.
We also just had a crash, and it doesn't bring out a caution. We'll see if we can get a replay. It was lap number 65 in turn number 3. 2 cars fighting, Nicholas Shelton and Eric J. Smith. Smith had the 79 really leaded on him on the outside. He bobbled, he squeezed the 79 into the fence, and as Shelton bounced off it, Timmy Hill came into the picture, got sent into the inside wall, made pretty good contact, and actually ended up back on the racetrack. Now, because it was back in 30th or so, I guess there weren't enough cars around for it to be deemed a risk, and that caution did not come out, so we stay green. Timmy Hill's come to pit road, gotten that car repaired, but that is a big bullet dodged if you're in the team hoping that this thing goes to the end, because that was a pretty big incident. 3 cars involved in turn 3.
Yeah, pretty surprised with that not bringing out a yellow, but I mean, look at this pack of cars second on back. I think you might have a mix of guys who are saving hard and maybe some guys who are trying to pick up the pace a little bit here as we're inside of 20 laps to go, as the fight for second's going to be on. Shearburn versus Keegan Leahy. Keegan closing in the slipstream, not quite able to get close enough though, and he's going to lift out of it, still saving. The 14 of Kerwin though, he'll show the nose on Jimmy Mullison towards turn 1, and he wants to make it 2 and 1. Gets underneath Luza as well, but can't quite get the job done, but he does get around Mullis as he moves up in line. So the 14 maybe risking the fuel a little bit more aggressively here.
In this single file train of cars we've been watching for some time, the most hotly contested spots on the racetrack. Down the back, the 99 of Clampett going to look to the inside of Mullis. Look at the 14 car. Casey Kerwin gets around Luza, gets around the 62 of Leahy, and almost all the way up to the 36 car is Shearburn, where he finally burns out. He'll tuck in line, but that 14 car got an incredible run as he made that move on the inside, and we'll see if he wants to challenge for second position. Clampett, the other car, went to the bottom, is pinned on the inside behind him. The 14 opts to not do it again, and look at the 30 car, 3 wide, squeezing on the inside. What a run, Blake Reynolds, but he can't hold it. He's tight, and he'll push the 99 car up nearly into the fence.
Man, that was a close call. The 99 almost got shoved up into the 62. Little close again. It gets close in the short chute. The 30 car was up the racetrack. Now goes up the hill. The 14 of Casey Kerwin goes to the inside of the 36 for position number 2. Chris Shearburn going to lose at least 1. Keegan Leahy goes to the inside. Where do you watch in this battle? Intense racing here as we close in on that 10 to go mark.
And that'll be 2 times from now as the 14 Kerwin now struggling on the bottom of the racetrack after he made it look so easy. Counter punch coming from Keegan Leahy, the car that had dominated early but just hasn't been able to get out of 4th position since we went back green. He'll drive to the inside, look for a twofer, gets to the inside of Shearburn. It's not going to work. That 36 now has held off 2 challenges in a row, but it is a position gained as Leahy gets back around the 14 car right now for 3rd.
And the way the 18 car Bobby Zielinski is saving, he is saving harder than anyone else in the field right now. And the gap between 1st and 2nd has come down nearly 2 seconds in the last 2 or 3 laps. Fight for 2nd. Keegan Leahy flashes a nose underneath Shearburn. Can he get it clear for 3? Not quite, but here comes that Interstate Batteries. Joe Gibbs Racing Machine getting backed up to this entire field. This is about to be a huge, huge stack up as hard as Bobby Zielinski is saving right now, trying to get to the end of the race. These guys are all pushing really hard, even though they're trying to conserve fuel. The 18, though, he's lifting nearly 100 to 200 yards earlier than anyone else, and he's about to be the lead car in this whole train. This might trigger a yellow if it gets cars stacked up.
He's been at least half a second slower than everybody else. I wonder if he's going to be forced to get up on it as Shearburn outside successfully holds off a valiant effort by Leahy. So 1st, 2nd, and 3rd being Zielinski, Shearburn, and Leahy do not change, but there they go, lifting very early on the back straightaway, and there's a move to the inside by Leahy. Almost gets clear. Zielinski is also going to be slow at turn 3, and Keegan Leahy to the inside, going to go to the race lead. Not clear yet, though. The 18 car can't hold him off, and new race leader Keegan Leahy gets back to the point with 19 laps to go, but we are far from done with.
Now, if you're Bobby Zielinski, how much did you save and how much do you push now in these final 10 laps? Side by side for position number 2 gets that run off of corner number 1. The 14 of Casey Kerwin trying to make a move on the 36 is Shearburn. Zielinski will maintain position number 2, and in behind them, the Snake continues to work around this Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the time being. They're single file, but a run down the back straightaway. They're going to try to get up to Keegan Leahy. Leahy has the field bearing down on him. Here comes Kerwin to the inside. Looking at position number 3 on the 36. He's going to push up. Reynolds trying to make a move.
And you have to wonder in all of this battling who has been given a green light by their team to go and who is still trying to save. There's a couple of different train of thoughts here because in the iRacing service, you can pull up information that calculates how many laps you're going to be able to run on fuel, and you can actually know how much fuel you've got on board as the 14 again. Kerwin trying to drive the inside, but Zielinski slower in front, blocking the inside, is not going to allow the 14 by. So not only can the driver get directly that information, but you have to think that he's also bouncing that info off the team. A lot of the drivers in this have actual people from their team in the sim with them, calculating fuel, calculating strategy, as Shearburn now going to be the one to go to the inside of Zielinski, side by side for 2nd, while Leahy watches from his rear view mirror in the race lead.
See that 62 of Leahy trying everything he can to manage this gap. Bobby Zielinski up top, just going to be able to hold on to it. And I'm telling you, if I'm the 36 or the 14 or even maybe Blake Reynolds, if I can get there fifth in line, I'm not being too patient. Look at this. 3 wide for the race lead into turn 1 in Indianapolis. Kerwin's going to try the Sato line down there on the bottom, and he's not going to make it work. Look at Shearburn now on the outside. He gets around the 14 car. Can he put the move on Bobby Zielinski as well? Through turn number 2, Bobby's going to try and squeeze him, but just can't quite get there. Here comes the speed now. Down the back straightaway, the 36 is going to be up top in towards turn number 3.
Shearburn's got the advantage as the 62 lacks the speed into the corner, and it is Chris Shearburn now to the race lead at Indianapolis. You saw the 18 squeeze low, pinch high. None of that worked out as Zielinski now falls to 4th. He'll have to deal with the 14 of Kerwin now, forcing his way to the outside. It is side-by-side battle for 4th position, but this time through. 6 laps to go at the Brickyard. Here's the counter punch by the 30. Reynolds going to go to the inside on Keegan Leahy. He'll now go back to 2nd position. A race high for him.
And now Blake Reynolds in the 30 trying to get up to the 36 of Shearburn. In behind Casey Kerwin trying to make that top side work. And oh, by the way, Corey Vincent's a part of this battle. Battle for the lead. Here comes the 30. What a head of steam at a corner number 2. He'll go to the inside of Shearburn. Casey Kerwin will follow him through. New top 2. Shearburn back to 3rd. And here comes Zielinski.
He had nothing for him. It looked like the 36 let them go. Maybe you can't save out front, and that's why so many drivers get out there and look dead in the water at the end of the straightaways, is they have to lift to conserve, and that's why we're seeing so much passing going on for the race lead. So it'll be a 3rd different race leader in as many laps, and for the first time tonight, it is Blake Reynolds to the number 1 position. Look at Bobby Zielinski on the inside. He'll rocket around Shearburn and take away 3rd, as he now tucks up in a battle behind the 30 and the 14 car. It was 5 laps to go that time. There are 9 cars in line within 1 second of your race leader.
Now the question's going to be, who has the green light on fuel? Did you maybe save a little bit better and a little bit more consistently through the early phase of the run? They're starting to fight for 4th. I see him stacked up and side by side. Dylan Duvall's in that fight. Chris Shearburn, he led down the back straightaway about 2 laps ago. Now he's fallen outside of your top 5 through 3 and 4 this time. It's going to be Blake Reynolds and Casey Kerwin down the front straightaway. And the 18 of Bobby Zielinski cycled into that fight as well. They're going to see 4 laps to go, this time across the yard of bricks. Who maybe has the fuel, and are we going to potentially see cars start to sputter here in the next 2 to 3 laps? And then, by the way, if we get a caution, what in the world happens if we get a green-white checkered with this fuel situation?
Once upon a time, cars like Michael Conti were in the top 10, but they did not think they were going to make it on their fuel number, so they decided to come down pit road and top off. There is no guarantee that all these cars are going to make the distance as Zielinski looks to the inside and Blake Reynolds all the way to the inside to throw the block. The 18 got to get hard on the brakes to not get into him, and Blake Reynolds trying to make that race car as wide as the back straightaway to stay in the race lead. The back end is caved in, but he is not going to give this one up without a fight. This time by 3 laps to go at Indianapolis. Blake Reynolds looking for a 1st win.
And how about the independent? Dylan Duvall has worked his way into the top 5. The Simcraft Ford up to position number 4. He's won here before at Indianapolis, trying to dig deep here in the late laps. We'll see who gets this run down the back straightaway. Blake Reynolds trying to notch that 1st win of the season. Dylan Duvall, Bobby Zielinski, the 14 of Casey Kerwin, all getting the run. Who throws the block down here? Here comes Zielinski.
There's no guarantee that if it doesn't happen up front that the wreck isn't going to come from behind. The entire field now is bunched up as cars are forced to get out of the gas to try to make it on their fuel number, but we'll continue to watch up front. Reynolds stays strong, and Zielinski doesn't have enough. Bobby Zielinski going to have to pit from 3rd position as we go for the race lead. Look at the 42 of Dylan Duvall. Reynolds blocks him all the way to the pit wall that time into turn 1 to try to hold him off. Dylan Duvall, a driver looking to return to Brickyard victory lane. That time by, it was Popsicle 6 in the air. The 30 car showing that he's willing to risk it all.
trying to keep the train alive of first-time winners that we've kept up with this series. Blake Reynolds, he's not making any friends with that block in towards turn 1. Here comes the 14 and the 42 once again with the big head of steam in towards turn 3, but not enough to make it stacked up. Only about a mile left till we get this race within 80 laps. If a caution doesn't come out off of turn 4 into the yard of bricks, we will not get a green-white checker down the front straightaway for the penultimate time. White flag waving at one of the most historic racetracks in North America. And Blake Reynolds, he's going to have his hands full in towards turn 1. Kerwin's going to play nice, but here comes the 27 of Vincent for third through the short chute in turn 1 and 2 for the final time.
And Vincent and the 42 are going to be pinned side by side. Does that take them out of this? Vincent wins. He'll go to third. Reynolds leads at a quarter number 2 with the last 3 races in this eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series. We've seen first-time winners. Lowe, Kerwin, and most recently Ashton Crowder. Can the 30 add his name to that list? Final time in 3 and 4. The 14's there, but here comes Corey Vincent also. He'll look to the outside. This one's going to be decided by the drag race out of 4 to the yard of bricks. Blake Reynolds, 3 car lengths over to fight for second. As he slows, he's out of gas. He'll block the 14 car. And on the outside, Corey Vincent is the only car to make it through, and Vincent wins at Indianapolis.
That was huge at the end. Blake Reynolds came within feet of taking away his first victory in this series. It's not going to happen tonight. He wasn't the only one to run out of fuel on that last lap. Dylan Duval, he peeled off from position number 4 coming out of corner number 4. What a strategy call at the end, and Corey Vincent is going back to victory lane in this eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series, and who knows, he might need help back to the other side of this racetrack. He slowed down the back straightaway, and Garrett Lowe gives him a little shot down the back.
Yeah, he's out. He's getting pushed down the back straightaway. You saw how close it was for Blake Reynolds, unable to make it on fuel. And at first, Randy, I thought it was just a block because he was putting those moves on him for the final 5 laps of this race, but you could tell he was out, and the challenge came to the inside. He successfully held off Kerwin. The 27 went high, was able to make it through, and for the first time since May of 2016, Corey Vincent once again a winner in the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series, and probably no burnouts on tap as he gets that push back through 3 and 4. What a race. I know that we have had some incredible finishes, and the margin of victory tonight at 4/10 is not going to make it statistically maybe even a top 5 closest finish this season, but that had to have been one of the best closing 10 laps I've ever seen.
This is why I love the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. When you get fuel race, fuel drama, it tends to put on a show. We've seen it historically on the iRacing Esports Network at this racetrack. That was one of the most dramatic final 40 laps of a eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series race that I can recall for a long time. I, for one, am a fan of the fuel mileage races, and I think Corey Vincent is now at this point as well. But what a run, and notably, and I think importantly here as well, Evan, is not a playoff driver who takes the checkers, so we still have 4 spots up for grabs here. Blake Reynolds half a second out of that, and from getting his ticket punched directly to go to Homestead here today. Another 200 yards worth of fuel, and he would have taken that spot. But going in towards Charlotte, we're going to guarantee that at least 3 drivers are able to get to Homestead on points.
And that means that it could be 4. Still a possible race win at the Brickyard up for grabs. We mentioned drivers who that could affect. How about Bobby Zelensky? Had to dive to pit road. He was a lap short on fuel. Well, coming into the C-Meet, Bobby was in the number 6 spot in the points. Talked about him being good on road courses. He may just need a race win in 2 weeks' time coming home at the back. Let's take a complete look top to bottom, though, at your Race Spot TV results. Corey Vincent, winner tonight from Indianapolis, atop Blake Reynolds, who is scored in 2nd position. Keegan Leahy finishes 3rd. Ryan Lowe 4th. Casey Kerwin 5th. A lot happened late. Of course, the race control is going to look over all of it, so I guess we'll preface all of this by saying these are your unofficial race results. Brandon Cattell behind in the number 6 spot, with Dylan Duval finishing in 7th after it looked like he was going to get his 2nd career win at IMS. Garrett Lowe comes home at an 8th spot. Good points today for the 28 car. Michael Guerrilla was 9th at ERLT and rounds out your top 10.
And just outside the top 10, we have Malik Ray. Phil Diaz has been flirting with the top 10 all night long, comes home in 12th. Nathan Lyon in 13th, Matt Busa 14th, and Ray Alfala. This should help his bubble efforts for the top 20, finishes in 15th here this evening with his teammate Chris Overland right behind in 16th. Zach Novak came in as the championship point leader. He'll finish 17th here this evening. Adam Benefield comes home with 18th. 19th is Ben Nelson, and Logan Kress completes your top 20.
I talked about playoff drivers and that a number of them qualified well, a number of them didn't finish well. Nick Onger in 21st, Brad Davies in 22nd, Jake Nichols 23rd, Ryan Luza inside the top 5 all race. He'll come home 24th. Chris Shearburn in the 25th spot. I also have Jimmy Mullis down here in 26th. Taylor Hurst 27th, Logan Clampett 28th, with Kane Cook and Michael Conti rounding out your top 30. Last 9 drivers on the running order: Michael Guest in 31st, Ashton Crowder 32nd, Christian Challoner in 33rd, with Eric Smith, Casey Tucker, Bobby Zielinski. Talk about heartbreak for him. 36th, the last car on the lead lap to finish today after having to peel down pit road late, with Timmy Hill, Nicholas Shelton, and Brian Schoenberg rounding out the 39 car field.
The look at the bottom at your Race Spot TV full race results. Let's go trackside and chat with the Renegades Ford Mustang. Corey Vincent, your race winner tonight at the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 3rd career win in the eNASCAR Antifreeze iRacing Series. Corey, congratulations. I know that there is no guarantee that when you get a trip to Victory Lane in this series that you'll ever get that chance again. It is so good to see you back at Victory Lane, and I know that these races can be very hard to close out, but man, just tell us about the end of that one.
Wow, man, I don't even know what to say. That was just insane. I can't believe that played out the way it did there at the end. I'm so happy to be back in Victory Lane. I think it's been 2 years since I won. I just got to give a big shout out to the guys, eSports Racing Group. Dustin Hall, he was helping me there at the end, managing the fuel, making sure we had enough to make it. Just a big thanks to him and just everybody on the team. Our car was amazing. It was really good. We we blew up in qualifying, so we didn't get our lap in. We had to start in the back, but the car was extremely fast. It was definitely a top 5 car, and man, I just can't believe that worked out the way it did at the end. That is just crazy. I ran out of gas right as I crossed the line.
We had an idea that it was going to be tight. Caution to flag comes out. You guys pit rated about 36, 37 laps to go, and it was evident from the get-go with drivers saving the fuel on that pace laps coming to the restart. Of course, we figured, well, the way Indy has been in the past, we're probably going to have more of these, but just in case, this could be interesting. What was your save strategy? We saw some drivers save early, drop back, come back late. Others put the pedal to the metal on for the get-go and then started to fall back. How'd you make it last literally just enough to get to Victory Lane?
Yeah, for the most part, you know, after we came out of pit road, we saved hard under caution, and then once we went green, we went hard. Honestly, we tried to drive up there and get as many positions as we could to just to be as close to the front as possible. And once we got up there, we just kind of was like, all right, it's extremely tight on gas. We just got to make sure we make it. So we just rode there. A lot of those other guys were, I guess, you know, they were shorter than we were. So they were falling back hard, and we was like, all right, we just kept moving up one position here. And then when we finally got the 3rd there, I honestly didn't think they were going to run out. I thought they were good. I thought we were going to finish 3rd, and I was going to be happy with that. But to see them run out and to have that happen on the front stretch there and be able to get the win, just amazing. Can't believe it.
Of course, the topic of conversation has been the playoffs. That Ashton just happened to do the same thing back 2 weeks ago. You guys just missed out on that mark, obviously competing to stay in this series for the 2020 campaign. But I think more in the general and broad scheme of things, just to be back at Victory Lane in this eNASCAR Antifreeze iRacing Series, what did it mean for you?
Yeah, it just feels so good to be back. Finally get a win again. It's been a while, like I said. Just happy to get a win. The beginning of our season didn't start off too great, but lately we've been having some really good runs. My team has definitely been solid. We got some help from the guys at Lockdown Racing, Taylor Hurst, Zach Novak, Jimmy Mullis. They're a big help in making this car as fast as it was tonight. And just extremely happy to get a win, get Renegades and Alienware their win. You know, we've been close this season, but just haven't been able to pull one off. But just extremely happy to finally get one.
In Victory Lane on the biggest stage once more. Corey, we'll let you get out of here. I know you've got some celebrating to do with the team. Before we do, anybody else you want to say hi to?
Yeah, just like I said, thanks to Renegades, Alienware, all my guys at eSports Racing Group. everybody over there that helps out, that works on these cars, that run the laps. The guys at Lockdown, they're a big help, and just everybody that's a part of this that makes it happen. And yeah, just can't believe we won. Crazy.
I know it wasn't exactly planned to go this way, but we'll say it as well. Thanks for putting on a show for us tonight, Corey. We appreciate your time. Congratulations. Hopefully there's a few more of these left for you guys for the rest of the year.
Thanks, Evan.
The race winner tonight at Indianapolis. Of course, the car that comes home in second position thought he had it off of the final quarter. Instead, it is a second place result for Blake Reynolds, who's trackside with Tim.
Yeah, the glass slipper broke coming off of corner number 4 for Blake Reynolds. But Blake, walk us through those last couple laps, because it looked like you were saving. But man, oh man, you played some defense up in front. Walk us through those last couple laps to the checker flag.
Yeah, man, everyone was just, running the line, and I was just doing what I could to save enough gas. I thought I saved enough, but right out of 4 there, basically pit entry, I just ran out, and then Casey's right behind me. I threw a quick block. I'm so sorry to Casey Kerwin, by the way. I'm sure a lot of people are mad at me for that move, but it is what it is.
I want to ask you now about the big picture. Obviously, if you would have won this race, you would have been locked into Homestead, but finishing in position number 2, you needed the points. So what are you thinking championship-wise after what happened here in the last lap?
Just got to take the points instead of the win and do what we can with it. The Robles, it's one of my better tracks, so I'll see what I can do. But yeah, I'm just going to take the points and go with it.
And I think unofficially third place in points going in, or tied for third place in points, so it's definitely going to shake everything up here. And you mentioned the Roval. Have you done any testing there? What do we expect out of that race? And can we get this thing parked in victory lane?
We'll see, man. Just got to put the time in. We'll see what we can bring up.
Team Dillon Esports put a great car with you here this evening. Who is on the race car, and who helps you get to the virtual racetrack every week?
Well, and the amazing set from Dustin Lingert and Houston Hammer. Lots of time put into this week, and I'm sure we'll put in more time next week. And then, of course, all our partners at Team Dillon, Beneath Apparel, Digital Ally, StockX, Elevate, GoShare, and, of course, Austin Dillon for, picking me up and putting me in the hot seat here and just giving me the chance of a lifetime.
There's Blake Reynolds coming home in position number 2, and Randy, it almost seems like he's a little disappointed, but right now tied for third in the point standings, looking pretty good going in to the Roval here in a couple of weeks' time. I believe you've caught up with another driver that's in this playoff hunt. Keegan Leahy comes home in position number 3.
And another driver that's looking really good. But before I talk about the points, Keegan, what's the mindset for you guys right now? Because it feels like we're almost 4 or 5 races in a row where that 62 car has been the best car, and just things don't happen in such a way, the cars don't fall the right way, and you just can't pull off a race win. We saw a similar situation at Darlington. We saw it at Michigan nearly a month ago now. We saw at Bristol you were strong, but strategy didn't go your way. It seems like all the preparation is there for that G2 Esports number 62. The speed's always there. The late run speed you guys have, whatever you guys have sorted out with the tires, is on another level. You're consistently 3-4 tenths quicker than anyone else late in the run, but not that bad on the short run either. So some black magic there. What in the world do you guys have to get into your pre-race regimen to maybe bring one of these races home again eventually? Is there, are you going to have to start taking in some black magic, or maybe get a witch doctor to try to curse the rest of the field? That's about all I think else you can do with the way things have been going for you guys.
Yeah, Randy, it's just luck, honestly. I got to have the cards fall the right way, like you said. We're doing everything right. It's just how these races play out at the end. It's such a crapshoot. I mean, no offense to Corey, but I didn't see him the whole race really. And just sometimes the race falls right in your lap. And of course he drove excellently and saved fuel. I don't know how he did that, but yeah, just all I got to do is lead as many laps as I can, and hopefully I lead the last lap too. Admittedly, I didn't really prepare very much for this race. I had a lot of issues. Traveling took a long time to get home. I got home midnight last night. I had a hurricane hit my town. I didn't have power until yesterday around midnight as well. I got water damage in my house. My wheels my wheel rim is acting up. I need a new cable for that. It's just, everything had to go right to get that third, so I can't really cry too much about not getting first.
Now, talking about when we get that yellow with about 35, 36 laps to go, how quickly did you guys realize you were in the fuel window and this was likely going to happen? We saw, some varying strategies, even with drivers that you work with. Technical Alliance driver Bobby Zielinski, he went out there and he pushed really early on the restart, and it bit him not being able to make it to the end, probably feeling a little bit like Robbie Gordon in that regard, having to pit late in the race and really hurting his playoff chances. Did you guys know you were in a fuel window? Were you guys saving from the get-go? Seemed like there was a lot of drivers pushing for about 5, 6, maybe better part of 10 laps before they really backed it off on the throttle.
Yeah, I realized from the start. We made a late decision to fill it up. We're going to run a little lower fuel load. Instead, we decided to fill it up and go for that long run. And I saved fuel from the moment I left my pit box on that last restart, before the last restart, to the end of the race. I was using as little gas as I could the whole run. So if that answers your question, yeah, we totally realized we were in a fuel window, and I was driving like that for the entire run there. And I think I played it almost perfect because I ran out of fuel as soon as I crossed the line. So it can't get much better than that. I just somehow didn't have that gas to get up to first. I'm gonna have to do some analysis, see what Corey Vincent just did, because that's quite amazing that he made it.
Final playoff round going to the Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway in 2 weeks' time, and you're going to be going into that race as the points leader. I don't think you're technically 100% mathematically locked in. I think if some things go really wrong, say the rest of the 7 finish 1st through 7th, and you finish say 40th, I think you could potentially not go to Homestead. But otherwise, you're looking pretty safe. How does that feel, knowing that you're in a very, very strong position heading into the final playoff round, and you don't even yet have a win?
Yeah, I'm super stressed out about these next couple of weeks, not only for peak, but I got a lot of personal stuff I got to get sorted out really soon. And having this awesome result and huge points cushion going into the final round of this playoff round is a huge weight off my shoulders. And yeah, I'm not mathematically in, but I pretty much have to finish last and a playoff driver win the race, and have the guy in 3rd and 4th both finish in the top 10 for something like that for me to miss out on the final round. So I'm pretty safe, but I do have to make sure I'm sorted out and I'm in a good position to start the race and finish well.
Before we let you go, Keegan, who gets it done for that number 62 G2 Esports Chevrolet?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't get to prepare this much this weekend, so complete credit to Chris Shearburn and Bobby Zielinski for a huge amount of preparation this week and an amazing setup once again. We got this long run down, and it's going to be super important at Homestead, I'm sure. And we got to figure out the short run. Some of these guys got us covered here, but we'll bring something together for Homestead, and hopefully I'll be able to help them more. I got to thank Mitchell DeYoung for spotting again this week, and Olive Coanda Simsport for all the help they give me. G2 Esports, they brought me out to Berlin this week. That was part of the reason I didn't get to prepare, so I can't not offer an excuse. But we were at the Counter-Strike Major and hanging out with the team a little bit, and I got a taste of the good life with top-tier esports, and I really hope Pete goes in that direction. And thanks to VRS for being on the hood. Peter's been such a huge support these last few weeks for a lot of different reasons, but just being on the hood and allowing me to be a coach for them is amazing. So check out VRS.
There he is, Keegan Leahy, after a big trip coming back from Germany, ends up in the 3rd spot here today at Indianapolis. Ryan Lowe finishes 4th, and he stood by with Tim Terry.
And with 10 laps to go, this 7 car was sitting in 16th place. So Ryan Lowe, I guess the easiest question is, where did you come from in those last 10 laps?
Honestly, I really don't know. I just got the green light from my crew chief Houston. He just told me to go get it, and I started picking them off one by one. They started running out of fuel and all coming back to me, and eventually we got up there somehow.
Talk about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This is a big race every year. A lot of these drivers circle it on their calendar. It's the Brickyard. How cool is it to finish in the top 5 in a prestigious race like this?
It's a great feeling, actually. Since I've been in the series now for 5 years, 2 years ago I got third here, so it's just awesome to be back in the top 5 just after a really rough year for me personally and on the track this year. So just to be back in the top 5 for once just shows how much better that I'm coming up and everything, and I'm getting back on my horse again. So hopefully we can finish it off strong, but nonetheless, definitely make it back in the series next year.
I was about to ask you that. You've rallied the last couple of weeks here. It's been really strong for this number 7 car, but right now, unofficially after this race, you are the 20th driver on the point standing, sitting 1 point up on Dylan Duval and 2 points up on a guy that's won a few championships in Ray Alfala. So we have 2 races to go. What is the mindset now? How hard do you have to dig or continue to dig to make sure you're in this series next year?
I've actually never turned laps at the Roval, so definitely I need to not wreck there and just come with a solid finish and hopefully be in the midst of everyone I'm around in points and everything. But definitely come to Homestead, I need probably a top 15, top 10 to ensure that I'm back in the series next year and I get to race these awesome guys.
And it wouldn't surprise me to see you back in the top 5 before this season is all said and done. But your team has rallied. Who's behind you? Who's on this race car? Who makes it happen for you every week?
It's Houston Hammer and Dustin Lingard. They're in and out every week. They just make this happen for the whole team. Can't thank them more and everything. Especially Houston. He puts up with me singing during races, and all that fun stuff I do behind the wheel. So thanks to them both, and thanks to John for definitely hooking me up with a new ride, and hopefully I might be back here. Who knows?
So wait, what were you singing behind the wheel tonight?
It's just behind the wheel. He just puts up with me, and I can't thank him enough for it. So that's that.
Whatever
Obviously
the tune
nothing
was,
good if he won't tell us.
Well, whatever the tune is, he's got to sing it next week at the Roval, right?
Maybe it's different. Sometimes it's Indiana Jones. Sometimes it's the they're all dun. So it just changes. It's on the mood, how the car's feeling, and everything.
Well, hopefully it propels you to the Roval and gets you a little further up in the top 20 in the point standings. That's Ryan Lowe. Great run here tonight, finishing in 4th at the Brickyard. And I believe Randy is caught up with a guy that came mighty close at the end of that one. Casey Kerwin comes home with the top 5 run.
Yeah, Casey, we've got to ask you. You come off of turn 4, probably settling into running where you're going to run in that second spot. Then Blake Reynolds runs out of gas and kind of throws the block on you, and you go from 2nd to 5th. What's the frustration like there on the run of the Yard of Bricks to have that cut across? You know, a lot of people are upset about it. Curious on how you feel.
Yeah, it's disappointing because, you know, these races aren't easy to win. Obviously, it took me 30 starts or something in a series just to win one, or even really to have a chance at winning one. And then tonight we would have had number 2, but you know, I can't say that in that situation, the sheer desperation at that point with how much is on the line, that locking into Homestead and having a chance to go at 40 grand, I can't say that, you know, I'd like to say I wouldn't do the same thing, but you never really know. I don't want to act like an angel, but yeah, so it's frustrating, but I keep like my Twitch chats all upset and everything, and I'm just trying to stay positive. Like, I know I can tell myself that I was going to win the race, and I can be really happy about that. So we're going to keep the momentum rolling. We're trying to get to 9th in points, which is the highest we can get. We're only 5 out now from 9th, so that's the goal going into the Roval. And yeah, I'm on a high. I'm still trying to be really positive. I'm stoked that this is the best I've ever driven, and hopefully we can keep it rolling into the Roval and keep gaining points.
Talking about how well you drove, it seemed like you were one of the first cars to hit that fuel number, and then with about 10, maybe 15 laps to go, that 14 car really came alive. How fun was that, knowing you were at one point trapped, I think, 5th or 6th? You got the green light, you started picking up spots, and you were pretty quickly up there into the top 2.
Yeah, it was difficult because, like, Zielinski and Keegan and Shearburn, they were all kind of, like, swapping, and then you get stuck, and, like, I tried to go 3 wide once, but just being pinned down there, you couldn't keep momentum up on exits. There was no point, and then I just really saved a lot of fuel. I started saving early in the run. Like, I think Mullis was all over me for a few laps, and thankfully I was able to stay in front of him, but that kept my fuel number really good. And then I thought Keegan would be as good a shape, if not better shape, and he went, and I didn't think we were good yet. And then thankfully he was kind of the guy that was stacking everyone up, and no one wanted to go to the bottom because you could just get pinched down really easily. And thankfully they were lifting enough where I drove up by like 3 of them in one straightaway, and I think I cleared up somewhere, I don't even know exactly, but all of a sudden I found myself in second behind my teammate Blake Reynolds there, and yeah, we cycled that. We worked our field strategy great, and we were both really close on making it, and it was going to be a good finish, but thankfully it just didn't work out. But it was a blast. I don't know why, but fuel saving, it's just fun trying to like outsmart the other people, and I was having a lot of fun doing that. So I'm proud that I don't know, I don't want to say I did it the best, but we did it pretty dang well. So yeah, I had a great time.
Your Twitch chat would probably say you did it the best, because it definitely seemed like you're going to be one of the few not sputtering at the line. But before we let you go, Casey, who gets it done for that number 14 Peak Antifreeze car every week?
Yeah, I just got to thank Clint Boy Racing and Chip and Clint and everyone there for believing in me at the start of the year. Glad we're running up front week in and week out, it seems, knock on wood, at this point, actually showing it. And got to thank the Dead Zone guys, Dustin Linger, Houston Hamer, all my teammates for helping Tess get these things dialed in and run good, and we've been showing a lot of good speed here lately, so hopefully we can keep that going the last 2 races. My spotter Brandon Wilkinson, the best spotter in the business, for keeping my head cool whole race, and keeping me steady. And then the guy thing, my Twitch chat, of course, they support me every week in and week out, even when I'm running 35th, so can't thank them enough. So yeah, and then got to thank Peak and iRacing, not only for being on my car, but putting on the series, and NASCAR and everyone. So it's going great, and yeah, looking forward to the end of the year strong.
There it was. Casey Curran rounds out our driver interviews for tonight. Evan, back over to you for what was probably the most dramatic race of the year.
I'm curious if this is one of those times where the fact that all these guys aren't in the same place was of benefit, and maybe Casey had some time to cool down there. You mentioned being maybe the best to save fuel. Probably should have won this race. Instead, it comes home in 5th position. But a big thanks to Casey, Ryan, Keegan, Blake, and Corey. And again, congrats to Corey, Vincent, on the race win, but also thanks to them for giving us some time post-race. What a finish. I mean, the fuel saving was going on for the better half of the final 20. It got even crazier in the final 10 to the final 5. And of course, coming to the yard of bricks, not enough fuel on board Blake Reynolds' machine. He blocks Kerwin into the inside wall. Corey Vincent makes it through, and he gets the race win. But let's take a look at our unofficial updated championship standings coming out of tonight. And boy, do we have some big changes. Of course, first to note, with no playoff driver winning for the 2nd time in a row, still at least 3 positions going to be available on points. That is, if a playoff driver wins at the Roval. But coming out of tonight, Keegan Leahy, Zach Novak, Garrett Lowe, and Blake Reynolds. Those are your 4. It is a cut line that sees Ryan Luza 13 points behind, Michael Conti 15 back, Jimmy Mullis even furthermore down in 7th, and Bobby Zelensky was running in a top 5 spot with less than 2 laps to go. He doesn't have enough fuel. He finishes this race back in 36th position and is dead last, needing a win next week to advance.
Yeah, I think when you look at that, though, you look at Bobby Zelensky, Michael Conti's name comes to mind as drivers that could very well go to victory lane at the Roval. Ryan Luza as well, but Keegan Leahy seems solid right now where he is on the buffer, 39 points up for that playoff position. So he's going to breathe comfortably, I guess, going in, because he's going to have some other drivers falter along with him in order to lose that playoff position. But if I'm Garrett Lowe, I'm Blake Reynolds, I'm going to have to be up on the wheel in order to keep myself in a top 4 position. And as some of those drivers mentioned, it's the Roval. Some of them don't have a whole lot of laps there. It's going to be tight going into some of those corners. Everybody is going in with the same goal, Evan, and that is to win that race to lock themselves in. And oh, by the way, there's drivers that are trying to fight for that top 20 bubble. You look back there at that top 20 bubble, Ryan Lowe is sitting in 20th. 1 point up is Matt Busa. Another 3 points or 4 points up is Michael Guest. Logan Clampett is just on the inside. Malik Ray is just on the inside. Then Dylan Duval, Ray Alfala, Phil Diaz, and Chris Overland among those that are just outside. So you've got 2 really good battles on our hands heading into the last 2 races of the season, and the Roval is going to be wild, mark my words.
And I don't know how much blame you want to put on us, Randy, but we were talking before the broadcast, that we even mentioned it earlier on tonight when we went live, that somebody like a Bobby Zalenski doesn't want to have to So continue it on through, Andy. We talk about what's going to be coming up in 2 weeks' time. For the first time in series history, we go racing at the Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Road course drivers like Bobby Zalenski, who have found success in a position where he needs to basically win that one. You got guys like Blake Reynolds winless this season, ahead of a 3-time winner in Ryan Luza, but we have never seen the Roval. Of course, half of it's the oval, but obviously the main concern is seeing how that plays out for the first time in series history. No one's going to want to miss that one in 2 weeks' time.
It's going to be a crazy race for sure, Evan, and I'm going to be honest, looking at things, and it feels crazy saying this, I don't think we're going to leave Charlotte with Ryan Luza in the top 4. We have a road course as the final race before we go to Homestead, and Ryan Luza there's no other way to say it, he was dreadful at Sonoma. He finished well down the order in 33rd. He was off the pace, didn't look comfortable with the car. It was involved with, a kind of unfortunate and, almost embarrassing incident that he had going in towards the carousel. I don't think there's any way you can say that Ryan Luza right now, going into that race outside of the top 4, is going to be anywhere near the speed he needs to be to race his way in. Bobby Zalenski, I think you can say, even though he's well down the order, he's prepared on the road courses. He's very, very good on the road courses. It would not be a shock to the system to see that 18 car steal a race win out there at Charlotte. Another driver who's very good in this championship as well on the road courses, Michael Conti. I would not be shocked to see that car be quick on the road courses. Remember, he ran second to Bobby Zalenski out at Sonoma this year. Keegan Leahy ran 4th at the road course as well. So there's a lot of drivers. Jimmy Mullis finished 8th as well. Blake Reynolds 9th at Sonoma all at that time. Zach Novak ran 13th. It's a big, big ask, I think, for Ryan Luza to get a good finish. He has consistently not shown great pace on the road courses, and I don't think we're going to have the driver that dominated the regular season, that nearly won that regular series championship had he not sat out that cutoff race at Bristol. I do not think we're going to see Ryan Luza at Homestead fighting for the championship.
We will see what the drivers will give us in 2 weeks' time, because by the time that race is done, we'll officially know who those 4 championship drivers are. At the moment, we've got an idea that drivers like Leahy and Novak are in a good position. If I'm Garrett Lowe or Blake Reynolds, I'm nervous going into that next race. But for Ryan Luza, Michael Conti, Jimmy Mullis, and Bobby Zalenski, it'll be do or die. That's it for us, though, tonight from Indianapolis, as round number 16 falls into our rearview mirror. You can catch more eNASCAR action this Thursday, September the 12th, for the eNASCAR Ignite Series, powered by iRacing Finale. A $10,000 racing scholarship is on the line for the best 13 to 16-year-old iRacers. You can watch that one right here at RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. And for more information information, log online to eNASCAR.com. For the broadcast team tonight and everybody behind the scenes, for our director Hugo Luis, for Justin Prince on background support, the cameras provided by Alex Horn, the broadcast graphics by Andy Werder and Simon Grossman, and for your broadcast team tonight. For Tim Terry, Randy Cheneth, and myself, Evan Pasoko, want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Corey Vincent as we get set to return in 2 weeks' time on Tuesday, September the 24th, for the round of 8 finale from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. That race and every race of the 2019 eNASCAR PK Antifreeze iRacing Series going to be found right here on Race Spot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Indianapolis, where Corey Vincent is back in Victory Lane.